If you want to talk about Division III basketball, you've logged on to the right place.
Welcome to the big show.
Whereas on the men's side, I think they overloaded two of the brackets, and as a result, I think we're not going to get a good Final Four in the sense of who everyone really would like to see there.
The system is a mess, guys, but I think that's neither here nor there.
The next 3 hours, we'll cover it all.
We don't have the time to move pieces because conferences are playing their title games on Sunday afternoon at 4 o'clock, for God's sake.
I'll tell you what, I'll support them. You guys are going to get to the Sweet 16 and get annihilated by Stevens Point.
With regional reports.
We've talked a lot about the fact on the men's side that there's not a lot of dominant teams, and the flip side of that is that you have a lot of parity. It makes the conference races exciting.
And interviews with coaches.
Hey, it's great to be on Hoopsville. I tell you, it's that time of the year.
Yeah, it is.
Thanks for having me. Thank you very much for having me.
This D3 basketball is the greatest. The players, they play because they love it. They're fun. The teams are playing. You go to these other campuses. It's where it's at.
And we knew that the ODAC competition was going to be very tough. We knew that each coach had done their job with recruiting. And there were so many young teams that we just knew that each and every night when we played an ODAC contest that we had our work cut out for us.
We'll talk about who's on top.
And the CCRW is much like the Wisconsin League, the WIAC, in that, I mean, really, it's a cliche, but it's true. On any night, anyone can beat you.
The surprises.
Every game counts, especially
play
the
your
regional
season.
games. Yeah.
Don't lose to a bad team.
Well, and don't lose your conference tournament.
And who's making news in Division III.
We got an awful tough league, and we have some tough games this week, but we're still tied for first place in our league in the loss column.
And as you point out, they're not a reliable team in the NCAA tournament. They've proven it year in and year out that you can't count.
You can even join in and chat with us.
I mean, this lower right-hand bracket is loaded.
This bracket is ridiculous. I mean, you could take a final. This could be a Final Four bracket. You want to play that Thursday game because you have not won an NCAA tournament game. You got to go out there and show yourselves that you can actually do it.
So sit back and relax, and let's talk D3 hoops.
We talked before about Hope Calvin being far and away the #1 rivalry in Division III basketball. You can't dispute it.
I think the WIAC always deserves 2 teams in the poll for sure, and probably 3.
Well, one, I think they got the easiest run to a possible Final Four. They don't have a lot of challenges on the way.
There were 3 teams in that region that deserved first-round buys.
Exactly.
And only 2 could get them.
Now it's time for Hoopsville.
Great show. Keep this up. This is a good thing for D3, and I will enjoy listening to the rest of the show.
Let's get it started in here.
Everybody, let's get into it. Get stoked, get it started, get it started, get it started. Let's get it started.
Here's your host, Dave McHugh.
And welcome in, everybody, to Hoopsville. Hope you are enjoying your week. I am your host, Dave McHugh, and we are on the air for another Thursday edition of Hoopsville as we are into February, everybody. Less than 4 weeks from NCAA selections and making the tournament, and we'll be talking tournaments, and we're less than 3 weeks from conference championships. Or tournaments, I should say. End of regular season for most is in less than 3 weeks. So we're pretty much in the meat of it. Lots to cover, lots to talk about. That might be an understatement, to say the least. Got lots to talk about, too, about Hoopsville. Update, just so you know, we'll mention this a few times during the show. Sunday night's show. Usually we've moved that up into earlier in the day. We're actually going to move it to Monday evening this year, due to some other big game taking place, obviously Super Bowl 46. So tune in Monday night, this coming Monday, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time for that show. So that will be Sunday's normal show from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Coming up today, we will be covering the Mid-Atlantic, the East, the Midwest, the West. Talk a little South and hopefully get in the Great Lakes as well, as we have plenty of guests ahead of us. Coming up soon, we will talk to NCAA Women's Basketball Championship Committee Chair, Robin Hamilton. She'll join us, as Ken Schumann did on Sunday, to talk about The upcoming regional rankings, which come out in less than a week from yesterday, a week from Wednesday, February 8th to be exact. Those regional rankings will come out. There are only 3 of them leading up to the championship tournament selections. We will talk to her about those and changes and any questions that you may have. So make sure you get a hold of us. We'll also talk in just a matter of minutes to Mary Washington men's basketball coach Rod Wood. Fascinating story there. They're the only team school we have duplicated this year on both the men's and women's side. Talked to Dina Applebury earlier. They're 20-0. Mary Washington men are now the number 1 team in the Capital Athletic Conference, and the last time anybody could say that is several years ago. St. Mary's has dominated that conference. Mary Washington actually beat St. Mary's recently, and so that is the reason for them to be the top dog in the race right now. We'll talk to him about that and how Mary Washington has come back into the fray and maybe how St. Mary's has dropped back and how the rest of the Mid-Atlantic shapes up. With teams. Mary Washington may be getting lost in the shuffle down in Fredericksburg, Virginia. We'll also talk to Millsap's women's basketball coach. They are our school of the week. We'll talk to them about an incredible run they are under right now. After starting the season, I believe, off the top of my head, 3-4. They have been undefeated since. So we'll talk to their basketball coach about that. And, of course, when it is School of the Week, that means Chris Taher, our producer extraordinaire, will get involved with his 5 School of the Week questions. We'll also talk, I'm forgetting one here. We'll go to the West Region, number 4 team in the country, Wisconsin-Whitewater. Pat Miller, their head coach, will join us on the show on the men's side. We'll talk to him about his team and how they are doing and their rise in the top 25 polls. And we'll go to the East Region, talk to St. Lawrence women's basketball coach out there. We'll talk about their terrific run so far this season. And actually, now that I think about it, let me call something up because I may have gotten my schools confused. Shocking, I know that is, to all of you out there. St. Lawrence is the team that's on that unbelievable winning streak. They were 3-4, so I got my Millsaps and St. Lawrence confused. I apologize. Millsaps, on the other occasion, is 18-2. They started the season 3-2 and have been undefeated since. I should point that out. We will talk to them about the Majors women's basketball run through the SCAC. So I got that fixed, and I apologize for that mistake. Again, Robin Hamilton coming up from the NCAA Women's Basketball Championship Committee. We'll talk to her shortly. Quickly, on the men's side, the big news, Middlebury lost. You may have heard me on Sunday night talking a little bit trepidatiously about Middlebury and my comments about whether they really were the number 1 team in the country. That's basically because I have had questions for several weeks on whether they were the top dog and whether they should be receiving my number 1 vote. They lost to a very difficult Kane State, who was getting votes in the top 25, on the road 77-76. Whether they remain number 1 is to be decided. 24 voters now have to make that decision. 1 voter does not. And we'll see how those voters make their decisions on Monday. I would not be surprised if Middlebury holds on to some number 1 votes. Hope is sitting behind them at number 2. They'll probably get some first-place votes with 1 loss. Virginia Wesleyan, I believe, is the other team getting a vote. They have 2 losses. Whitewater has 2 losses. MIT has 1 loss. Amherst is 2 and Cabrini 1. I don't think Amherst and Cabrini will get any consideration. Franklin and Marshall might get some consideration from some voters. I can assure you it won't be me. I have them in my top 25, but not that high. So Middlebury, Hope, Virginia Wesleyan, Whitewater, and MIT probably in the running now for number 1 in the top 25. We'll see how voters feel about that. That's the only significant loss so far this week. Illinois Wesleyan did lose a tough one to Augustana in overtime, 80-78. That game at Augustana. Whether they stay in the top 25 now with 5 losses, we shall see. Below them, receiving votes, Rhode Island College is struggling. Eastern Connecticut is struggling. Bethany lost to Thomas More. That's a little bit of a surprise, though Thomas More certainly tough. Ohio Wesleyan lost to Wittenberg, who was higher ranked, at least in the receiving votes column. St. Thomas lost another one. They're now 14-6. We'll see if anybody holds on to any votes for them. Lycoming and Farmingdale State also lost, so that's on the men's side. Quickly on the women's side, Lewis and Clark lost to George Fox 54-41 earlier this week, and that is your only loss in the top 25. Messiah and Tufts, La Crosse and Colby and Wheaton, Illinois, all losing in the receiving votes column. So that is your top news of the day so far. By the way, another interesting story following out of the Atlantic region. Maybe we'll get a little bit more on this on Sunday. But in the State of the State address, the New Jersey governor stated that he has plans to combine Rowan and Rutgers-Camden. What that does for those athletic programs is certainly yet to be decided. That is way down the road. How that will all play out is certainly of interest. There is a link to a story on the front of D3Hoops.com, though I've read the story. It doesn't give you any more indication than we have. No one at Rowan and no one at Rutgers-Camden has any idea of how that will affect the athletics programs. Rowan, I think, has 15 programs, and Rutgers-Camden 19. That's off the top of my head. If you have any questions for us, email us at hoopsville at d3hoops.com. That's hoopsville at d3hoops.com. Our AOL address is hoopsville2000. That's hoopsville2000. Join us on Twitter. D3Hoopsville is your Twitter account, at D3Hoopsville. Or your # hashtag is Hoopsville. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. We also have the chat room running, which reminds me, I forgot to put my little message in there for all of those who are in there. Let's hit that and hit send now, and we have taken care of that. Speaking of Facebook, one of the new followers as we climb over 900 is the Mary Washington men's basketball program following Hoopsville now, and I certainly appreciate that. And joining us on the Hoopsville hotline is men's basketball coach for Mary Washington, Rod Wood, joining us here on Hoopsville. Coach, welcome back to the program.
Hey, it's good to be here. Thanks, Dave.
I appreciate you taking the time out of, I know, a busy schedule for the Eagles. But certainly it has been a successful run so far this season. You're 15-5 overall, 10-1 in the Capital Athletic Conference. The one loss coming, quickly checking so I don't get it wrong, to Frostburg State. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but you just beat St. Mary's last night, 67, or I should say this weekend, 67-65, putting you guys on top of the Capital Athletic Conference. You've got to be thrilled with how your Eagles are playing this season.
To say I'm surprised would be probably a mild understatement. I didn't see this coming at the beginning of the season, but anytime you have a senior dominated team, some good things can happen, especially if everybody pulls in the same direction.
Well, certainly some good things are happening. I mean, 10-1 in conference. You're game and a half up on St. Mary's. Obviously, odd number of teams here, so you've had the week off essentially before taking on this weekend. More CAC foes, but you're a game and a half up on St. Mary's, who now has 3 losses in conference. Let me start there, if you don't mind. St. Mary's, a team that everybody has been keeping an eye on for several years, made it to the Elite Eight last year. Certainly lost quite a few players from last year's squad, but then even took a double dose and lost some players to injuries at the beginning of this season. So St. Mary's has come back to earth a little bit. What did you see, at least over the weekend, in St. Mary's, or earlier in the year when they when they tripped you guys up at their place by 10?
Well, actually, we beat them at their place at 10, and then
you're right.
to win at home as well. So
right,
we
I'm
won
sorry.
both of those meetings. So,
yes, misreading that. I'm sorry.
I tell you, they came back a little bit to the pack, but they're such a well-coached team, and they have a lot of talent, and probably one of the best big men in the country in Christian McCauley. So, it's one of those things where they've been at the top of our pack for 3-4 years now.
Yeah.
And they get everybody's A game. I mean, everybody comes shooting for them. So I don't think that they came back so much as they get everybody's A game where, we might get somebody's B game or C game, maybe not this late in the season being 10-1. But St. Mary's has gotten everybody's A game, and that's hard when somebody's trying to knock you off night in and night out, and they're coming for you. They're running their offenses to defeat you. Their defenses are gearing up. So I think it's more a matter of that than them coming back to the pack so much.
Of course, losing their leading returning scorer at the beginning of the year due to an ACL injury, they've been in a little bit of a flux trying to find their team. You guys are top, number one in the conference right now. The road clearly could be going through Fredericksburg, Virginia. But do you feel like you're on top of this conference, or is this still the Seahawks that you have to beat, or everybody has to beat to really be the crowning, the top dog in the CAC?
I think we still have to beat St. Mary's, and not to put anybody below that, but we still have 5 games left.
Yeah.
And I was just telling my team today in practice, I said, having essentially a 2-game lead over St. Mary's with beating them twice,
right?
We still have 5 games to play, and we could go 0-5 in those last 5 games. Our conference is pretty good from top to bottom, and although the bottom of the conference 1-loss record doesn't look good, we beat Marymount at our place by in double overtime,
right.
And Stevenson, the next team up, had us on the ropes up at their place. So it's not like we're blowing out all of these teams. We happen to play our best games against what is considered the better teams, but we really don't have the talent from top to bottom just to overlook somebody. So we really need to come and play as a team and play well every single night, and that's what I'm really stressing with my team right now.
Of course, Stevenson defeated Wesley last night in a thriller. Of course, Wesley maybe a little disappointing at 8-12, 6-5 in conference. I think a lot of people expected more out of the Wolverines this year.
Yeah, I really didn't see that coming either. I had St. Mary's at the top, and I had Wesley was going to be close behind them, and then York is always one of those teams, and especially in Jeff Gamber's last year, you knew that they were going to have a good record and try to send him out on top.
Certainly.
And I thought we would be in that middle of the pack with a bunch of teams and seeing how that was going to shake out. And with the conference only taking the top 6 teams, at the beginning of the season I was going, I hope that we can get into that top 6 and not be left out of the playoffs.
Well, now you're in the driver's seat, and you're right, 5 games left. They're against Salisbury at home, which has had a decent season, certainly under their new coach. Hood and York on the road. Back home against Stevenson, and then on the road against Wesley. So let's talk about your team. And then leading scorer, at least statistically, is Bradley Reister at 12.5. You're getting 10 points out of Walt Smith. And then you have a number of guys who are contributing who may not be getting the statistical numbers. And that even includes the rebounding side. There's 2 guys with nearly 5 rebounds. That's Sean Armstrong and Henry Brisby. But the rest of it's an interesting look. If you look at statistics, there's a couple guys in double digits, then there's a whole mess of guys behind them putting up points, and that makes me feel that you certainly have lots of options on any given night.
I was telling somebody the other day, I said, we've got to be a nightmare to prepare for because we don't have a go-to guy. I mean, we don't have a guy that's going to go out and get 15, 16 points a night. We don't have a guy that's going to go 8 to 10 rebounds every night. We have a different person that leads us in scoring every night. We have a different person that leads in rebounding. Sometimes it's a point guard. Sometimes it's a post player. Sometimes it's a wing player. So it's really hard to key on any one. Sometimes I look down the bench and I see the other coaches going, who is that? Who is that? And, we see it every day in practice. And for me, it's been a real nice year because whenever you talk team basketball, we really have a team. And we're only as good as our weakest link. And I tell these guys this all the time. But we have 10 to 12 guys that are really interchangeable. It doesn't matter who I start. I'm really using the first 10 to 15 minutes of a game to figure out, hey, who's got the matchups this week or this game that bodes well for us? So it could be the guy that's the third one off the bench that has a better matchup out there, either offensively or defensively, and we go with that hot hand. And the guys who have either started or have played more minutes in the past, they do a great job of coming off the bench and say, okay, my role tonight is to come off the bench. So from that standpoint, it's been really gratifying as a coach, and it's been a lot of fun to work with them because, again, we've got to be a nightmare to work with.
You mentioned it's a senior-laden team. You've got 5 seniors, I think I got a count. Of course, I'm
5 seniors, yeah.
5 seniors on this team. You got a whole mess of sophomores as well, and just 1 junior. So while you lose a lot from this year's squad for the next year, you certainly look like you're in position, at least with the success of this year, to maybe not reload and be, maybe as good next year. You could be. I mean, it depends on how the sophomores play. But you seem to be good for the next few years at least.
That's the hope. We went real young last year, and we played a style of game to get them into the game. And I think that's helped us out a lot this year. We started Bradley Reister last year. We started Walt Smith last year, both freshmen. We played mostly freshmen last year and let the juniors do a little bit. This year, we've let those juniors that became seniors, we let them lead. We put in a new offense, a new defense. We're doing some things different. And so those guys who got good minutes last year as freshmen are now coming off the bench, and I think that's helping us out quite a bit. And again, even though we graduate 5 seniors next year, and we start 4 of those right now, hopefully we don't go down much next year. That's the hope.
Let's talk about the Mid-Atlantic region a little bit. You have certainly seen it all in the Mid-Atlantic region in your tenure at Mary Washington. And in case anyone is not sure, 15 years worth at the helms of the Eagles. You've seen it all. You've seen the CAC shakeup. You've seen the conference shakeups as a result of teams leaving and shifting and creation of the landmark. And you see the CAC grow and change and move, and it'll go through it again next year. You've seen the MAC change. You've seen everything change except the Centennial Conference. How do you see the Mid-Atlantic this year? It seems like there's maybe more teams than people realized going into the season that are worth talking about.
Yeah, there really is. And I tell you, usually when you get toward the end of the season, it's usually the ODAC. It's usually some team in the South or one of the Wisconsin teams. And I tell you, from top to bottom, it's going to be tough to make it out of the Mid-Atlantic. And I think Mid-Atlantic teams are Franklin and Marshall. You have a team out of the MAC that could come out of there. I mean, there's so many good teams, but you see that across the landscape in Division I basketball, Division II, Division III. There's so much more parity now, and really any team can make a go of it if you get into the tournament. But I look at the MAC right now with Messiah, Lycoming, Alvernia. We played Alvernia down in Florida. We didn't play them at a great time for us. But this is a team that can come in and knock off anybody. You got a Messiah team that's won their last 10 games. That's a team that can go in and knock anybody off. Franklin and Marshall, I mean, that team's as good as anybody in the nation right now. So from top to bottom, Mid-Atlantic is very, very good basketball, and especially in the Division III ranks. That's what's great about coaching at Division III in our area. Any given night you can win a game or you can lose a game, and if somebody's going out to watch basketball, the Mid-Atlantic region in basketball is a place to be. Division III is just a fantastic game.
Yeah, I mean, I'll freely admit, coming into the Mid-Atlantic season this year, I did not expect a lot except for maybe Franklin and Marshall, Cabrini, and St. Mary's, and I've been pleasantly surprised by some other teams who have stepped up. I expected some out of St. Mary's, clearly. But, the likes of yourselves and others have certainly been a pleasant surprise. You're playing in a brand-new gym. You're playing alongside a 20-0 team this year, and a women's program that, after a couple of years, has certainly rebounded back to where they have been in the past. What's the atmosphere like on Mary Washington's campus this winter?
Oh, it's fantastic. With the new gymnasium, we went from a gymnasium that held about 600. It seated everybody on one side. It was a cramped atmosphere, and we usually had it packed night in and night out. But this new gym, it's as good as most Division I teams in our area. We seat about 2,000. In the last game against St. Mary's, we had over 1,500 in there.
Wow.
It's as loud as the old gym. And having the success, everybody loves a winner. And with our women having the success that they've had over the past 6-7 years, and playing most of our games as doubleheaders, we've had a real good student body turnout, and it's been a lot of fun. It reminds me of when the last time we went years and years ago, when the student body really took hold of what we were doing and really followed us and really helped us out. That's when Catholic and Goucher were still in the league, and Gallaudet, and I miss those times with that because we just started to get a decent rivalry going. But I start to see that atmosphere happening again, and a lot of it has to do with the new facility. People are proud of that. It's a nice place to watch a game, and there's a lot of things going on, not just basketball going on around there.
You bring up an interesting point, talking about the student body kind of responding this year. It's been a topic of conversation in many different places that I've been around, and I've certainly seen it ebb and flow at my own alma mater, mainly Ebb. Well, how difficult is it from your point of view to get a student body sometimes interested in what you are doing? Do you feel like it falls on your shoulders and your team's shoulders? Do you feel it falls on the athletic department's shoulders, or do you feel the administration is helpful in those ways of trying to get the student body interested in programs, outside of their classroom, outside from going off campus?
I think for the successful programs, I think everybody has to work in conjunction with each other. If the administration isn't behind you, if they're not doing some things to get some kids in the seats, I think you have trouble there. I think if the athletic department isn't selling it to all the athletes, they are, regardless of whether it's basketball or something else, we need the women's field hockey team. We need the women's lacrosse, the men's lacrosse, the baseball team. We need them to be part of it. And then during their seasons, we need to be part of their seasons. I think you need that. And then, ultimately it's up to us. We have to put a good product out on the court, and we have to win. If you're not winning, you don't put a good product out there, they're just not going to come back and watch you. There's too many things going on at the college university level. They can go see a play. They can, they can go out to dinner. They can go to a mall. They can study. They can do so many things. There's so many clubs. So it's incumbent that you put a product out there that they enjoy. If you can get them there, then they enjoy what they see. They'll come back again. And if you're winning, that just helps the whole thing out. But I think the successful programs, all three of those areas have to work together. And then again, I think it's real important when your season is done that you go and support the other sports, because the majority of D3 students are athletes. And so if you can support them, I think that they come back and support you.
Very well put. I appreciate your point of view. Coach, I thank you for taking all the time to join us here on Hoopsville. Obviously, 5 games left in your regular season, starting off at home against Salisbury on Saturday. And then obviously the conference championship tournament, which you're obviously very much in play for. As always, though, we give the coach the final word on this show. So any final thoughts you'd like to share with those listening tonight?
Dave, I really appreciate you guys inviting me on here, and I hope that I get to talk to you again, because if I talk to you again, it means that we're still winning. So
yes.
Thanks a lot, and good luck, and go D3 basketball.
Absolutely, Coach. Well put. I appreciate you coming on. Good luck the rest of the way. Maybe I'll run into you guys somewhere down the road here.
Thanks, Dave. Bye-bye.
All right, take care. Rod Wood joining us from Mary Washington men's basketball. Again, 15-5 overall, 10-1 in the CAC. Their losses to Christopher Newport Apprentice School, non-D3, Alvernia, and Emory-Riddle, non-D3, and Frostburg State just a little while back. We did not talk about that loss, and I apologize. Though that game was at Frostburg State, and if anybody knows, from Fredericksburg, Virginia, out to Frostburg in western Maryland, not an easy trip. You somehow got to get, first off, negotiate your way around D.C., and there's no easy way to do that that's not time-consuming. So I appreciate Rod Wood joining me here. Again, 10-1 in the CAC. They're 2 games up, essentially, on St. Mary's after beating them in both games this season, so congratulations to them. We're going to take a very quick break. On the other side, we're going to talk to women's basketball committee chair, Robin Hamilton. If you have questions, email us at hoopsville at d3hoops.com. That's hoopsville at d3hoops.com. IM us at hoopsville2000. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/hoopsville, or join us on Twitter at d3hoopsville or hashtag hoopsville. We'll be back right after this.
Are you an embarrassment on the dance floor? Do you confuse state capitals and read too many celebrity gossip magazines? Well, if you answered yes, you may have what it takes to adopt a teen from foster care, because teens don't need perfection, they need you. So if you think an MP3 is a computer virus, it's okay. There are thousands of teens in foster care who would love to put up with you. For more information, call 1-888-200-4005 or go to adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt Us Kids, and the Ad Council.
All season long, let D3Football.com be your home for all the Division III football action on the road to the Stag Bowl. From interactive blogs and message boards to columns from around the region and around the nation on your favorite teams, nobody covers NCAA Division III better than D3Football.com. As the playoffs approach, get the scoop on who's in and who's out from the experts who picked all 32 teams last year. Don't go anywhere else. Get the info from the source for Division III football at www.d3football.com.
Who are you?
Who can make you cheer?
And play your fight song?
Who can bring you to your feet?
Or bring you to your knees?
When the game is on the line, who do you want to take the last shot?
NCAA basketball. Who's your team? NCAA Women's College Basketball. All day, every day, our game. These women can really play. Filling it up, knocking them down, and bringing it home. It's basketball at its purest. For family fun and great entertainment, there's nothing like it. All day, every day, our game. NCAA Women's College Basketball.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you are enjoying the show. Rod Wood on from Mary Washington just prior. We appreciate him taking the time. By the way, I am wearing the shirt I promised to wear today. Grinnell College sent us a shirt. I think, Chris, is there something on the back? I never looked.
Nope. Clean on the back, Dave.
So it's not the actual system shirt, but that's okay. Or I misplaced it. Maybe it's upstairs. But I'm wearing a Grinnell College basketball shirt. That's all that really matters. It's all that really matters. Coach Dave Arsenault, we appreciate him sending him. He was dead set that he was sending us that. We promised to put it on. So we appreciate him taking the time to do that. If you have any questions for us, email us at hoopsville@d3hoops.com. AOLIM is Hoopsville2000. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. Please like our page. We'd love to have it. We have well over 900 people following us on Twitter. We want well more than that. We'd like to hit 1,000 before the end of the month. Heck, by the end of next week, if we're so lucky. That is at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville is the way to find us as well. On Sunday, we had the NCAA Division III Men's Basketball Committee Chair Ken Schumann on the show, talking about regional rankings and changes and all that jazz. Today, as we hope to have promised, or I should say we promised and hoped it would come true, we do have the NCAA Women's Basketball Committee Chair, Robin Hamilton, joining us on Hoopsville, the Associate Athletics Director at Puget Sound. Welcome to the program once again.
Thanks so much, Dave. It's great to talk with you.
Well, I appreciate you taking some time out of your busy day. I know you've got lots going on, so we won't waste too much of your time. But thank you for coming on. Obviously, we try to talk to yourself and Ken before the regional rankings come out, and then hopefully after the matchups and the brackets have been released to kind of give people an idea of the whole process. I do find it funny, though, the two committee chairs are located in the great Northwest of the United States this year.
Well, I think that's a true sign of where we're moving in Division III.
Yes.
It is a nationwide type of affiliation, and the Northwest Conference, Ken and I both, our institutions both belong to, are relatively newcomers to Division III. We've been in about 12 or 13 years,
right.
So we feel like it's time, and it's a great honor, I know for me, and I know Ken feels the same way, to be able to represent the West on the National Committee as chairs.
Well, I certainly appreciate the fact. I wish it gave me an excuse to get out to the Northwest. It's just difficult from the East Coast. But I did fly over during the summer. I did wave. I hope
that's terrific. You saw Mount Rainier and the Great Ocean.
Yeah, on my way to Anchorage.
Well, what I've learned tonight, Dave, is that a Puget Sound Loggers basketball T-shirt better be in the mail to you tomorrow.
You don't have to. By the way, I don't want anybody to I think somebody on one of the chat rooms misunderstood. We have a collection of shirts we've collected during the year that we're wearing, but if people find out that we are wearing them and they want to send them, we are more than happy to wear them ourselves. And if we have too many, Chris will wear one as well.
Well, I just, getting the loggers out there is a great mascot, and I'm not sure any other people in the country with loggers. So
no.
We'd be proud to have you be sporting that on your show.
Very nice. We will work on that. It's surprisingly, where my parents are from in Maine, there's no teams named Loggers up there. You'd think they'd figure it out, especially up in Presque Isle or something. But we'll move past that as quickly as we can so we don't waste any more of your time. But thanks for coming on. I know last year when we had you on, you were kind of new to all this, new to the committee chair position for women's basketball, and certainly new to the whole process because a lot of things had happened in the committee that had made things a little bit more chaotic, I think, than many people thought. And I don't mean that I just mean that as a setup. Obviously, you've been in position now for a good amount of time here in the NCAA's eyes. Things are a little bit more settled. Before we get to the nitty-gritty, how are you feeling your committee is ready and regional committees are ready for the first regional rankings next week?
I think we're set and we're ready to go. We've spent a lot of time and even a few more hours than we had anticipated this week, and our committee just is so adamant about getting this right or doing the very best job that we can. And I love the makeup of the committee. A lot of people asking questions. We've got some really good numbers people on the committee that are, math skills are way beyond mine, and I'm just really impressed with how diligent they've been in processing those numbers. And then also the communication piece has really changed, I think, back to the racks this year with the change in the process. And Holly Sheely, who works with us from the NCAA, has done an amazing job in helping us really get the word out. We had a mandatory webinar for all of our rack members that I think went really well and gave them some great information to really arm them to do the job that we're asking them to do.
Explain to people who may not be aware of what changes you may be referring to. I know that technically on the men's and women's side all the changes are very similar, but I also know because of different bracket sizes and stuff like that, there could be other changes. So just give some people a brief idea of what has changed over the last year, even if it's just a little tiny minor thing.
Yeah, the process has changed in terms of how those regional rankings are voted upon. Previously, we tried to come to, unanimous decision at the end of those regional conference calls each week. And now each of the voters on the racks vote independently, offline, after those calls, which gives an ability for them to really be in charge of that. Then the National Committee reviews it just to make sure we are communicating properly and getting the message out about how to interpret the criteria and how to come to that vote. But the votes of the regional committee stand. They're not changed by the National Committee, and those are the regional rankings. They're true regional rankings that you'll see each week coming out here in the next couple weeks.
Now that we talked to Ken Schumann about this last week, and we know that there were some changes put in place, and certainly the National Committee oversees those things, though he did indicate that while they don't change the regional rankings, if push came to shove, and it's an educational process, but push came to shove when it comes time to the final regional rankings, when it comes to selecting teams and bracketing them, that if a change is felt necessary by the National Committee, at least on the men's side, they would go to those racks and say, guys, this isn't right. We feel this. Please go back and look at that. Is that true on the women's side as well?
It is true, Dave, and I think that's the beauty of the checks and balances between the Regional Advisory Committee and why you would have a national committee. And again, the hours and hours that we pour over those numbers, there may be an oversight, and I think that's what gets us as close to perfect as is possible in this very difficult process, is that the National Committee is looking at a national view when it comes to that Selection Sunday on February 26th. And our whole year leads up to that, and all the preparation and work that we do to be aware and to be diligent in pushing the numbers. And yes, if we felt strongly that there was something that was askew, bottom line, we want to get it right. We want the right teams in the tournament. We want the right student-athletes to have that opportunity. And so at that point, the National Committee will look at that final ranking.
Talking to Robin Hamilton here of the NCAA Women's Basketball Championship Committee. She is the chair of that committee. Talking to you here on Hoopsville. If you have any questions for her, email us at hoopsville@d3hoops.com. That is hoopsville@d3hoops.com. You can ask those questions also in the chat room. You can also ask them on Facebook. That's at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. We are trying to monitor all those locations and try and get your questions answered. 3 regional committee rankings this year. I believe the last one will be public. At least the men have told us that as well. Is this true on the women's side?
The final one will not be published. The one on Selection Sunday on the 26th will not be a published regional ranking.
So let me ask you this. The men have said that will be a published regional ranking once everything is done and the brackets have been released. Why not on the women's side?
I just think that then we're working on selecting the national championship at that point, and it's just not anything that it's going to be a moot point by then. Again, with the ultimate goal of us getting it right, we want to move ahead and get to the top 64 teams, and off of the regional rankings, we use that to determine the national field, to help us determine the national field, so it won't be published.
Just to go off on this a little bit, transparency has obviously been a major part of NCAA Division III recently. Ken Schumann alluded to it last week as well, and that was one of the reasons he pointed to make this the final regional rankings open. Is there a concern that maybe there isn't that transparency thus, or are you not as worried? What about on those lines?
I'm not the least bit worried. I think that we're going to prove my goal on February 26th, when we spend hours and hours putting in those 64 teams.
Right.
Absolutely nothing changes from our regional advisory committees, and that's the work that we're putting in right now to make sure that we nail it that day. And I'm really confident that the communication plan is better, and I would feel terrific if on that Sunday we have no changes in the regional advisory committee's recommendations across the country. And that would be terrific. But we then have to take a regional and seed a national tournament, which is why, again, it is a difficult job. And we get up every day just like everybody trying to get better at this, and we certainly are going to try to get better at it than we were last year. And if we weren't committed to doing that, then we wouldn't be the right people for the job.
Certainly. Though, the first question I'll ask you is about that on Monday.
I know that you will. I look forward to it, Dave.
Hey, let me ask you this. Part of transparency, too, I know that there's been a lot of talk of making sure we get regional games correct. Teams are rewarded thusly or not rewarded for games that many felt was regional, et cetera, et cetera. And we have 4 different ways of determining regions, and we won't go into that now, but since we've done it in the past. But is there? I know from what Ken Schumann told me that basically because the NCAA statistics group is on board now with Division III, and he is very confident that those regional problems would be taken care of, and so anything being released early to double check that information to the public or to anybody who may know outside of NCAA, he doesn't feel as worried. Or do you have any worries that regional games may be miswritten or put in, and thus that could affect how RACs are doing their jobs, and thus how you guys could be doing your jobs on the national committee?
I don't have any concern about it, Dave. I can't be more grateful than I am that J.D. Hamilton and the stats people at the NCAA took over that work. It is the proper place for it. I've already seen that we are so much better off in terms of the information already this year in the score reporting form. That's not to say we don't pay attention. Each of our members of our RAC have been asked to continue to monitor that, but we just haven't seen the number of mistakes. We're not seeing any mistakes compared to what we had last year. And so I'm fully confident that system is well in place. And again, that's the human error side that I think we have significantly reduced by putting it in the hands of the professionals.
Well, that's good to hear, and I'm glad to hear there's that confidence, and we certainly look forward to seeing that. Let me ask you this. There are only 3 regional rankings. I know there was a date when there were 6, and I will agree 6 may be a little premature as you didn't have enough data, but it also feels like 3 is almost so late in the season, no one understands really where everybody sits in the NCAA's mind. Do you feel 3 is too few? Would you like to see one more? I know you're practicing already, so it's not like they're adding any more work, but essentially. But do you feel 3 is too few?
I'm really happy with 3. We went through the practice poll scenario this week with our RACs and with our national committee. And again, the amount of criteria that's available is very limited.
Sure.
And it makes it very difficult for us to get any honest basis for how to rank people. And again, everybody's starting through the second part of their conference seasons for the most part. So you're going to be able to start to see the true trend of who the leaders are in those conferences really establish themselves. Again, preseason, that's important if people are playing outside of their conferences, which most of them are, across regionally, and even, some regions that they normally wouldn't see. So then you're going to be able to start compare, wins against common opponents and things like that. Otherwise, you're pretty restricted with those 5 primary criteria. A lot of times early on like this, all you have is win-loss percentage and strength of schedule. There's no, very little head-to-head and not that much in terms of wins against common opponents.
I know there's always cries for this every year, that it become more national, that the regional thing has gone to its extreme, that it's almost national to begin with, that all games count. I am a proponent that we don't do that because I don't think that's the D3 mantra. Do you have an opinion on whether all games should count, or we keep this regional, or if there are any changes that should take place?
I think that's a great conversation, and I keep listening carefully to the pros and cons that each person brings to the table. It obviously would be a shift in culture in regional philosophy of the NCAA, and that's a long-established trait of Division III, to be regionally minded. So I think that's a big shift. I have a little bit of a bias, I think, being in the West, in that it's so difficult for us to get the number of regional games that other less geographically disadvantaged areas might get. But again, I think it's great it's on the table. I think it's a great time to have that conversation. But I'm not convinced either way that it's time to make a change. But I think it's time to have the conversation.
We're talking here with Robin Hamilton, chair of the NCAA Women's Basketball Championship Committee, wrapping up here with her. Obviously, a lot to work with the next month, lots of hours for your national committee and the RACs. My question to you, and I asked this to Ken Schumann as well, do you still find it that some coaches just aren't aware of what counts, what doesn't count as games, and when they put their schedule together, they're still dumbfounded as to maybe why they're regionally ranked a certain way?
I don't think so. I think the information is available, Dave, and it's like anything else. If you want to be the very best at what you do, then you need to research everything you can in terms of learning the process and understanding the process. That's why I think it's so great that so many coaches have made the choice to be RAC members, which again is sort of a thankless job. But those coaches are trying to make themselves better, and I think they're trying to help the process and they're trying to understand. And so I really respect them for doing that, and I encourage every coach that has an opportunity. Those RACs change over. New people are always being added. Be an advocate for yourself and for your program, and look for that opportunity to join one of these committees because you're going to be better versed at it. But I think if they want to know the information, Dave, it's certainly available in so many different publications to kind of learn the ins and outs of how to do it. And for young coaches, I would just ask them to talk to people, talk to the veterans that have been around, that understand the system, and can help them understand scheduling and what's important and what's not.
Quickly, the timing of everything at the end of February, or let's just say regional rankings. When should we expect regional rankings on every Wednesday, and when should we expect to see the brackets released?
Those are great questions. A lot of that stuff's out of my hands in terms of I know that we're done by 5 o'clock. The RACs are asked to make their votes by 5 o'clock Eastern time on Tuesday, and then we get it as a national committee, and that call happens at 8 a.m. here on the West Coast on Wednesday mornings, and then I would guess that we would get them Wednesday afternoon into your hands.
And then bracket announcement, that obviously comes on Monday the 27th. Is there any idea of when that will take place, or is that still to be determined?
No, I don't know the exact time, Dave.
Okay.
I know that it will be on Monday at some point. And again, we will be working our hardest we can on Sunday to get those things away and get them delivered. So, and we're really excited to be going back to Holland, Michigan, and to Hope College for our national championship this year. And I just wanted to give a shout out to all the people at Hope who are already scrambling to do everything they can to make this a terrific final championship game up there at DeVos Fieldhouse, which has had a lot of great women's basketball played on that floor. And I know the committee and I know all the student athletes that will be participating in that will have a fantastic time in Holland, Michigan.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Quick question to you regarding that. Obviously, the women's tournament has been moving around every 2 years, Illinois Wesleyan previous, and then Hope actually before that at Holland, Michigan. Other locations like Virginia Wesleyan and Springfield, Massachusetts, etc. Is there any sense that this will continue as a move every 2 years, or that anybody may try and make a play to kind of house it for a while, like Salem has done for the men's side?
No, I haven't heard any of that discussion, Dave. And we've been so fortunate to have such great hosts and to have them on the campuses of Division III schools that right now we're just we're excited to be in Holland for a couple of years, and we know that's great basketball, and they're great fans at Hope. And again, we know how well they treat those fans and those visitors to their town. So we're looking forward to that.
And let me ask you one final off-the-wall question, not related to the NCAA necessarily, but I hope you don't mind.
Not at all.
I don't know if this is your purview either, so forgive me if it's not. But I kind of noticed there's two top 25s on the women's side. There's the top 25 for D3Hoops.com, voted on by 25 different people from around the country, and one of them being Pat Coleman. The other one is the WBCA, and the one thing I find interesting is there are only 8 voters. Is there any talk in women's basketball that maybe the WBCA needs to boost its membership? You talk about the committees and encouraging people to take part in that. Do you feel the WBCA should do the same with their top 25? It just seems strange that only 8 voters from around the country are voting.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, Dave, and I don't know if that's a logistical issue in terms of getting enough people to commit to doing that on a weekly basis, and if it is, and I'm not aware of it, I don't really have insight onto that. But if it is, then again we need to, as our coaching group gets together with the WBCA at that annual meeting, if that's something that's important, they need to certainly voice that and see if we can get some more representation around the country.
Talking to Robin Hamilton here from the NCAA. Certainly appreciate her taking the time to join us here to talk about the selections process, et cetera, et cetera. Let me leave you with this. Any thoughts that you think need to be conveyed that we have not covered to those who are listening about this process and about the final month here?
No, I think that we're going to, again, I can't tell you how committed we are to getting this right and to put the energy and effort into it to make it the best championship ever. And D3 women's basketball is pretty amazing stuff, and you have, Coach Gramacki and Amherst just rolling along, and you have Chicago undefeated, and George Fox from out here with Coach Meeks undefeated, and Calvin. So there's some great basketball being played throughout the country, and I guess I would just encourage everybody to get on the bandwagon and see us through on this for what's going to be a fantastic 2012 championship.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it for sure. I appreciate you coming on the show. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your evening. I know you are very busy. We'll let you go now and hopefully chat with you on Matchup Monday on February 27th.
I look forward to it, Dave, and thanks again for letting us come on board tonight.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Take care of yourself.
You too, sir.
All right, Robin Hamilton joining us from Puget Sound, Associate Athletics Director out there, and she is the chair of the NCAA Division III Women's Basketball Committee. I apologize for that. We were going to have Lenny Reich on here about Great Lakes. I'm going to delay Lenny just a little bit because I don't want to rush his report. So we're going to go in a little overtime tonight and get Lenny on in about an hour. So any Purple Raiders fans who knows Lenny is the SID there, or any fans of the Great Lakes, don't worry, we're not going to ignore you. We're just going to postpone the Great Lakes for about an hour here. Also getting some tweets that there may be some connection problems. One of them I tout as being is maybe not being us. I get 2. I start getting a little worried. Tweet us if you are having problems. Everything from my end says we're doing okay. We will have Chris look at it on his point of view. But if there is breakup, I apologize. There isn't much I can do right this moment to fix it. But we hope you stay tuned. If it has been breaking up and you are having problems with it, the archive will be available, and knock on wood, it doesn't have any breakups either. The archive will be available shortly after the show. We will tweet that and message that on our Facebook page and put it on D3Hoopsville or hoops.com as well, so you'll get a chance to go back and pick up anything you may have missed. So, again, if you're having troubles with our signal, I apologize. Hopefully it's on your end, and I don't mean that negatively. I just mean I hope we don't have a major problem on our end, and hopefully it's somewhere else. I got a few extra minutes here, so let's throw the rant in here. It's a bit of an ad lib. I could go about 4 different directions on this. I could talk about sportsmanship, which seems to have been taking a little bit of a downspout. If you talk to some out the CCIW, it is a popular topic right now. I could also talk about rules of the game that I'm getting a little frustrated with. That happens all the time. I get frustrated with that, and that can go coincide with the sportsmanship. I could also talk about one other thing that Chris is to blame for, mainly because he put it in my head last night. And that's fans rushing the floor after a so-called big win. I think it's getting done a little too much. I don't know if this is an ESPN per se fault, and I'm not blaming ESPN. I just mean the fact that we see floor rushes all the time. We got to rush. I get it in some situations. I get it in other situations. But all in all, majority of the time, I don't get it anymore. It's not an in thing. If you look at football, it's even gotten ridiculous. But we'll stick to hoops. Last night I was watching Stevenson versus Wesley online. Pretty good game. Wesley, as we point out, with Rod Wood not having a great season. Below 500. Playing a Stevenson team that is rebuilding and has certainly some solid moments. Game was at Stevenson. It was a 3-point game with 13 seconds left. Wesley had the ball and missed a 3-pointer to tie it. And the fans rushed the floor. Stevenson fans rushed the floor, thrilled that their team had defeated Wesley. Again, Wesley's below 500. They're not on top of the Capital Athletic Conference. They are not even in the fight as they have been in the past. They're not nationally ranked. Stevenson isn't winless. Stevenson has had bigger wins in its history, even recent. I don't understand why the fans rushed the floor. Saw it also in the Chicago game that made highlights on SportsCenter. Nothing against Maroon fans. Pretty big win against Emory. Number 4 team in the country. Huge 3-pointer at the end to win it at the buzzer. At least you had a buzzer beater to celebrate. Just didn't get why you were on the floor. And I understand some people out there are like, it was a buzzer beaters against the number 4 team in the country. But it's not like Chicago is a bad squad. It's not like Chicago hasn't been in the conversation for years. I understand Chicago has not been the top team. Coach McGrath has done wonderful things out there with his program to get it back up into the conversation in the UAA. I will give a little latitude because it was a buzzer beater against a number 4 team at the time in the country. But still, I felt it was a little overrated. And then the announcer's call is cool until I thought about it more. The announcer's like, we're going to join them. Why? You're calling the game. Do you see Dick Vitale? Bad example. He might rush the floor. But rushing the floor is kind of, Hey, Kane State fans did it at home after defeating Middlebury, the number 1 team in the country. I'll give you that one. Kane State is getting votes in the top 25. They're having a great season. But they beat the number 1 team who had been previously undefeated, I think the last undefeated team on the men's side. They defeated them at their own place. I get the rushing the floor there. But Stevenson over Wesley? I don't get that. That's happening more and more. I don't know if fans just feel like they need to rush the floor for some reason, and that's the way you celebrate. I don't get it. Rush the floor when it's appropriate. Buzzer beater. That's why I give Chicago a little latitude. Win over a top team. That's why I give Chicago a little latitude. It's why I give Kane State a lot of latitude. But rushing the floor just because you won a game? Makes no sense to me. And that's what Stevenson did. They just won a game. Yeah, it was against Wesley, but they're 8-12. Wesley is not that good this year. Coach Kobasa will tell you that. I think it's just dumb. And this is going to be a bad analogy, but you see what riots do in soccer and overseas, right? What happens when somebody gets hurt because they trip and fell and everybody trampled them? I'm not saying it's definitely going to happen, but someday it might. No one to rush the floor. It's just dumb if you don't. We'll be back with School of the Week and more Hoopsville after this. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com, right here on Ustream.
Who are you?
Who can make you cheer?
And play your fight song?
Who can bring you to your feet?
Or bring you to your knees?
When the game is on the line, who do you want to take the last shot?
NCAA basketball. Who's your team?
Amber alert, abducted child, African-American girl, 6 years old, suspect wearing blue shirt, black jeans.
Now when an Amber Alert is issued, you can get the same information the authorities get right on your cell phone. Sign up for free at wirelessamberAlerts.org. Think of it, something as simple as a free text message could free an abducted child.
All units Amber Alert canceled. Child recovered safely. Suspect is in custody.
wirelessamberAlerts.org. A child is calling for help. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Daddy, I'm only 3 years old, but when you look at me, I could see the wheels turning. You're dreaming about what am I going to be when I grow up? A Major League First baseman? Maybe a point guard for the national championship team? Or the winner of the Heisman Trophy?
The odds of a child becoming a professional athlete? 1 in 16,000. The odds of a child being diagnosed with autism? 1 in 150. You know the odds of autism. Now learn some of the signs. No big smiles or other joyful expressions by 6 months. No back and forth sharing of sounds or facial expressions by 9 months. And no babbling by 12 months. To learn more of the signs and more about autism, visit autismspeaks.org.
So, Dad, let's keep dreaming the impossible while looking out for the possible, okay?
Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
NCAA Women's College Basketball. All day, every day, our game. These women can really play. Filling it up, knocking them down, and bringing it home. It's basketball at its purest. For family fun and great entertainment, there's nothing like it. All day, every day, our game. NCAA Women's College Basketball.
And welcome back to Hoopsville. I'm your host, Dave McHugh, broadcasting out of our own studios in the greater Baltimore area. Thank you to D3Hoops.com as always, and of course Ustream, where we stream our show. If you have missed anything, don't worry. We archive the show, and it'll be up a matter of minutes after we are done here. We will tweet that and put it on our Facebook page. Tweet that? Yes, we have a Twitter page. It's at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Right at the top of your screen. You can also join us on Facebook, right at the top of your screen, at facebook.com/Hoopsville. Want to know how to email us? Right at the top of your screen. Hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. We also use AOL-IM, believe it or not. Hoopsville 2000. You can also join us in the chat room, where I do know people are watching us, so we appreciate that. Programming note, reminder that Lenny Reich from Mount Union will be joining us a little bit later in the show. We passed his segment on to later in the show, so we will go into a little bit of overtime. Also coming up, reminder, Sunday's show has been moved to Monday. Normally we do an earlier show on Super Sunday. This year we're going to move it to Monday and have our own darn time slot. Also, again, a thank you to Grinnell for sending us their basketball shirt. Grinnell College, the system is in place in the Hoopsville studios. Dave Arsenault, appreciate that. Sorry for the camera shake. It doesn't like me hitting the table. If you have any questions for us, again, email us at hoopsville at d3hoops.com. That is hoopsville at d3hoops.com. Now time for Thursdays, always in entertaining, School of the Week. And joining us on the Hoopsville hotline is the Millsaps women's basketball coach, Chuck Winkleman. And, Coach, welcome to Hoopsville.
Thanks. It's great to be with you all tonight.
I certainly appreciate it. 18-2 on the season, 10-1 in the always difficult SCAC or SCAC or however anybody wants to call it. You guys are playing some pretty good darn basketball.
Yeah, I'm really proud of the young ladies. We've had a real busy 18 months here, and they've accomplished a lot and really, I think, establishing a great foundation for not only this season but in seasons to come, and really, really pleased with the young ladies that we have in our program.
Well, if you go back to last year, 12-13 overall, you were 8-8 in conference. The season before, Millsaps was, computer slow, 1-24, 1-15 in conference. You talk about a quick turnaround in just a matter of years. You go from 1-something to 500, 500 to 18-2.
Yeah, we try not to. Really, we've got to stay grounded. I mean, I listen to you, throw those numbers around. I have to remind our staff and our players every day that honestly, there is no streak. As far as I'm concerned, we're 0-0, and whoever's up next is up next. And sometimes when you get caught up in all those other things, your greatest opponent is yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And we definitely have nothing to rest on here. Complacency can be quite an enemy, and I'm really excited about how they're handling all of this. We're much, much more about bigger things than just wins and losses here. And I think the 18-2 or the 10-1 in the SCAC is a byproduct of some things that are much, much bigger than that record.
Well, of course, you're in your first season at Millsaps. Clearly a way of certainly helping this program get to where it is just this year already. You've got to, or I'm saying first season, I'm assuming.
Second.
Yeah, I'm
second.
looking at the website. I'm sorry,
yeah,
Coach.
My second. Yeah.
Yeah, your second hasn't been updated, but we'll get past that. Your second season, I mean, you've got to at least have pride in the fact that this is how quickly you've been able to at least bring Millsaps kind of back into the fray.
Oh, sure. Yeah, and I don't want to have any sense or come across to you or anybody else that, there's some false humility there at all. I think we're excited, and as you get older, you learn how to enjoy these times because you're not always going to have them all the time, and definitely we enjoy it. But I think the great competitors, the real champions in life or in athletics, are often men and women who have a sense of humility about them, though, because I think when you stay humble, I think you drive and you push harder to improve and to get better. So I think there's a healthy pride, no question. And we're greatly encouraged by that. But again, like I said, those numbers and the record we're throwing around, I just think that's just a byproduct of something that everybody's buying into that's much more meaningful to all of us here.
This team is certainly playing great basketball, as we mentioned, though you're not a hugely deep team. You have 11 or 10 or 11 players, a little more than that. You've got one senior on this squad. You've got a handful of juniors, a handful of, really one sophomore, a handful of freshmen on this. You're being led along the way by Shantae Morton at nearly 16 points a game. She's the junior we mentioned. 13.2 points from Velvet Johnson. She's a freshman, and I love the name, by the way.
Yeah, sweet, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. 6.3 out of Samantha Perez, who's also a freshman. Your rebounding stats, if you quickly look, you're getting 10-plus out of Janice Okeke.
OKK.
OKK. I like that name, too. And then
Yeah,
10.
you got an awesome name. You come play for us.
I'm telling you. And then 10+ out of Shante Morton as well. You're certainly getting contribution from all over the place. What's been the bread and butter for this team?
Well, I think it starts with, you've mentioned a couple of them, Shante Morton and Janice Okeke, if you talk to anybody in the SCAC and some other folks we played out of conference. Those two are, in terms of post players, which when one can step out and shoot the three awfully well, and Shante Morton, I think she's like third now in the nation in double-doubles. She was leading at one time. It's our inside game. I mean, we're definitely an inside-outside team, and those two are as good a tandem, really, we think, and probably our fellow coaches in the SCAC think, as in the nation. They can play with a lot of folks. So it starts there. But Velvet Johnson is an incredible story as a freshman coming in and doing the things that she's doing. And Samantha, all the way from Miami, Florida, they've been key contributors, along with a couple returners and Lovey Love, Shay White, and Elizabeth Sigafus. So we know where our bread and butter is for sure, and it starts there. But we've got people stepping up, like you said, and contributing in other areas. Well, we're not just an inside team. You've got to respect people in other spots on the floor as well.
I'd love to be your public address announcer, which is my other profession. Lovey Love, Elizabeth Sigafus.
Yeah.
I'm just imagining nailing some of those names. That would just be too. Lydia Chase. I mean,
yep.
You got some great names on this, and obviously they're playing good basketball. You mentioned the SCAC and how that is shaping up. Your one loss in conference is to Center, much earlier in the season, back on December 2nd. It was such a significant loss that you've won 15 straight since then. 66-61, it was at home. Of course, you have Center coming up, your second to last game, and that one's on the road. Of course, that'll make it a little bit of a challenge. But they're on top, at least on your side of the ledger, as it were, in the conference by one game. Then it's a distance back to Rhodes. On the other side, Colorado College and Southwestern and Trinity, Texas are all 6-5. So really, it looks like it's shaping up to be Center versus Millsaps in this conference for the title, and it's also looking like it's shaping up for those two teams to move into the NCAA tournament.
Well, I don't want to go too far, too fast, because I have a great deal of respect for. I think it's a little deeper and a little more challenging than that. This tournament will be held at Birmingham Southern,
right?
And Brad has got a team that's very, very capable, and Matt Dean does an outstanding job at Rhodes College, and he's got a young lady that was a University of Tennessee transfer that played for Pat Summitt a year ago.
Wow, you don't say that every day.
And she's come back from an injury and has now returned to the lineup, and they probably have one of the best backcourt duos when Bell and her are on the floor together. So it's a little more wide open than that. When we played Center, and they have an outstanding team. Janice Okeke had been out for 4 weeks with a broken hand. It was her first night back, hadn't practiced. We got her cleared an hour before the game and had a big old pad still on her hand. The doctors wanted to let that thing not absorb, all the punishment right away when she returned. So we were a little, we're a different team now, but so is Center. Center's better now. So I still don't want to say that's the reason why we got beat. They're too good for me to take away any victory that they had, and Wendy does a great job as well. So we got our work cut out for us. And again, like I said, we just try to stay in the process, stay in the moment, and not get ahead of ourselves, and continue to try to improve. And we look forward to the opportunity to play in the tournament. We got lots of ball to play before we get there.
We're planning to put some type of video montage together as a promotion for Hoopsville. And Chris, I'm hoping you took down a few of those quotes there from Coach.
Sure.
I got a couple jotted down.
You got a couple there,
yeah.
because he had a couple good ones we could use.
Sure.
Absolutely.
We got to have some coach speak on this.
That's what
program.
I'm saying. That's what we
Yeah.
love.
If you don't have coach speak, it ain't Hoopsville.
The challenge for me after 9 some odd years of doing this show is how to work my way around coach speak. And it's practically impossible, just for the record.
Sure.
You can't do it. But no, I mean, hats off. Center's clearly 18-1, 11-0, a tough squad. Rhodes, I don't want to take anything away from them. 14-5, 8-3 in the conference. And you mentioned Birmingham Southern 10-10, 5-6.
Yeah, it's just because they host and he does a great
Absolutely.
job. And they got some kids that, man, if they get it going and they got that 3-ball going, they got some kids inside that can score the ball enough to beat you if you don't show up. And we had our hands full earlier this year when we won in overtime. So we just have a great respect for our opponents. We're not afraid to play anybody, but we just have a healthy respect for those that we play every night.
I'm kind of getting a kick out of something on your website. Since you guys were School of the Week, we told everybody that. They put a nice press release together for you on the website. But have you talked to them about the picture?
Yeah, my wife has already talked to me about the picture.
Okay.
Yeah. But I said, hey, I'm just down in my prayerful stance on my knees.
I appreciate that, Coach.
Yeah. She was hoping there would be something a little more, professional looking than this guy just.
I like the logos personally.
So yeah, I need to send you a Fear the Sword shirt though. Forget all this system stuff. We got a Fear the Sword shirt. I need to send you. So. I don't want to hear about the systems. I want to hear about Fear the Sword.
I'm sorry. We'll talk about the swords then. Fear the Sword. I like that. Hey, Coach, you are the School of the Week, and that means we get to have a little fun with you. We hope you don't mind.
Sure.
Chris puts together a rather well-prepared 5 questions regarding either your school, your program, the athletics department, or anybody who's been associated with the school. So don't worry, we aren't going to ask you any questions about center that I know of. That's the other key. I don't know what Chris found. The leader in the clubhouse is 4 out of 5. No one has done worse than. Did we go 2.5, Chris?
We got 2.5.
2.5.
Yep.
But he's got to remember, I've only been here 18 months.
We realize that.
Yeah,
but
you
the
gotta
last
give me
coach
like a mulligan or something.
was the last coach 1 year.
Yeah, I think it was.
And 3 out of 5.
3 out of 5.
So 3 out of 5 out of first-year coach.
Wow, now the pressure's on.
Now the pressure's on. So
Yeah,
I just
I'm
want
already getting nervous. I'm going to drop to my knees right now.
Well, now would be appropriate with the picture. So we bring in Chris Taher on the Hoopsville line here. He's now gloriously in video. Luckily, Coach, we got a nice still shot of yourself. But he is here to talk to us about give us your 5 questions, Coach. I don't know them either, so this will be fun for me. Chris, Coach Winkleman is all yours.
All right, Coach. Here we go. First question. Millsaps was the summer training camp home for which NFL team from 2006 to 2008?
Hey, the New Orleans Saints.
There we go. A nice, easy one for you.
I was going to say that was pretty easy.
There you
He
go.
likes to start him. He starts them easy, Coach.
Right,
Starts them easy.
Confidence is demonstrated ability.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm getting a little confidence. I'm demonstrating some ability here.
He usually lays down the law on number 2.
Okay.
That's it. The Saints then won the Super Bowl in 2009, so I don't know what that says about them leaving Millsaps. But
cold.
I'll say.
Cold.
All right, here we go. Number 2. Millsaps is featured in Lauren Pope's book, Colleges That Change Lives. Name 2 other schools that change lives. There's 40 of them.
That's awesome.
See, I told you he lays down the law, and he loves these U.S. World Reports, and he loves these other.
I'm going to go, because I used to work there, I'm going to go with Hendricks College in Conway, Arkansas.
That is correct. Hendricks is on the board. Yep.
Let's take a stab here, a real long shot here. But I had a
remember you're on video, Chris.
I had a niece that attended here, and I'm going to go with Whitworth College, Spokane. Is that one?
Whitworth is not on the list.
Oh. Hey, I like your thinking though.
Yeah.
Keeping it in the family.
That's a great school.
It is a good school.
There's a whole bunch.
Apparently, this author didn't think of much of it though.
Yeah, that's too bad.
I won't run through all of them. There are 2. Dave and I are both alums of 2 schools on that list.
How about Hope?
Hope is on there. Yep.
Yeah.
Goucher's on that
Goucher
list?
is on there, and so is McDaniel.
I should
So-
be ashamed
Yeah, I
of
should have gone
myself.
with Hope. Hope's an awesome school, too.
Yeah, very good school.
So everyone
That's
can
all right, Coach.
check
1 out of
those out.
5 isn't
So it's
bad.
1.5.
One-
That's 1.5.
Yeah, we might give you the half. Out of 2, not too bad.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Number 3. Millsaps has a fierce football and basketball rivalry with what nearby school, which has included a student brawl, an alleged theft of Millsaps founder Major Millsaps, and
Yeah.
the definition of a Millsaps observatory.
Yeah, I've already been a part of that rivalry. I understand it. I've lived it now. Our friends from Clinton.
That's right.
Mississippi College.
Mississippi College is right. They can kind of compare it to the backyard brawl. Started in the 50s.
That's why the Majors have swords, by the way.
Yeah, that's a great rivalry. Thousands of people show up for that game in football in the fall. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that is a great game in football.
That's great. Yeah, suspended after the student brawl and then started back up
Yep.
again in 2000. So
Yep.
pretty
Yeah,
good stuff.
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Man,
Another duo that just
you're good at your job.
Yeah,
this is what happens when I give them all week.
Wow.
There's another school that just restarted after a similar situation. But anyway, moving on.
All
Number
right,
4.
Number 4. There is a spot on campus between Murrah Hall and the Major's tomb where a landmark was erected. It is said that the first person a Millsap student kisses on this landmark is the person he or she will marry.
Oh, no pressure there.
What is the name of this landmark?
Wow. You have dug really deep.
Yeah.
Not to mention the fact, talk about guys keeping women away from the landmark at all costs.
Here we go. They call that the M bench.
He knows it. No,
Wow. He
wow.
was just stalling for fun.
He nailed that. That's correct. The M bench, big bench in the shape of an M.
Yep.
The name borrowed from the C bench at the University of Chicago. For those
Very
out
good.
there.
Oh.
Very good. Or the C bench, they got theirs from Millsap.
Oh.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to
Gotta
go with
get
Chris's version.
Right.
You have to ask your players if they know about the M bench coach.
Yeah, who are they staying with?
We talk about that when they come around and tour campus with their parents. So
Keep
the
them
dads
away
get-
from the
yeah,
M
the
bench.
dads get real concerned
Right.
about that. Yep.
All right, here we go. Last question.
All right.
Millsaps alum Claude Pesseux was an all-star pitcher in the major leagues. His greatest performance came in Game 3 of the 1945 World Series, where he pitched a one-hitter against the Detroit Tigers to lead what team to victory?
Oh!
That's amazing. I want to find out where you dug that. Because, Jim Page has been here for over 20 years. Our baseball program is fantastic here at Millsaps. He's
Stalling. Looking it up on the web.
Stalling. Yeah, looking it up on the web.
Right.
Very good. You guys, I'm going to go with St. Louis Cardinals.
Good guess. It is the Chicago Cubs.
That was my second guess.
That was Chris's shot at my team.
Yeah.
Little dig. That victory
Oh.
gave them a 2-1 series lead. The Cubbies then lost the next 3 out of 4.
Yes, let's move on now.
And haven't been back to the World Series since.
Thank you.
So Claude, he is not the last Cub victory in the World Series, but the second to last. So that's kind of
why
neat.
I was rolling over for that
Wow.
whole question.
Okay, I did okay.
Yeah, three and a half.
Maybe
Not bad,
maybe
Coach.
3.5. That's pretty
I
good,
beat
Coach.
that up. That's good.
See? That's what matters.
That's
Very
right.
good. Chris, you better not find Cubs questions in the future.
I'll keep looking for any relation to the Cubs for every school.
Yeah, we're going to remember that. Coach, I appreciate it. We're going to take Chris off the line now.
Okay.
Thanks so much for joining us. I certainly appreciate it. 3.5 out of 5, not too bad at all. And good luck the rest of the season. I mean,
appreciate
hats off. Obviously, you've got tough games still ahead of you. We're certainly nowhere done with this season, certainly. But 18-2, 10-1, 15-game winning streak here. You got Birmingham, Southern, and Oglethorpe at home, then Rhodes at home before Center and Swanee on the road. As tradition always has it, we ask the coach for the final word here on Hoopsville. So any final thoughts you want to share with those who are listening tonight?
Well, I would say this. I really am thankful and humbled to be here. Millsaps College is really a first-class liberal arts institution. Many think it's an Ivy League school of the South. We've got a faculty ranked in the top 10 by the U.S. News and World Report's latest college edition. And, a lot is said about Mississippi and a lot of different, areas. But per capita, this is the #1 most generous state in the nation. And is truly full of people with great Southern hospitality. A great place for young people to come and go to school here and get a great education, not only play great basketball as well, but and a great place to visit. And thanks for having me on the show.
Well, thank you, Coach. And Chris, I'm glad you didn't ask him a News and World Report question.
I know, he was ready for it.
He had those
he
down
scouted
pat.
me out.
He did scout you. Hey, Coach, thanks so much. Appreciate it. Good luck the rest of the season, and hopefully we're talking to you, talking about you in the NCAA tournament.
All right. Thanks, y'all. Take care.
You too. Take care. Chuck Wickelman joining us here on Hoopsville. I apologize, by the way, a little misspelling there on the bottom of the screen. It had the L and E reversed. I apologize for that. But, Coach, good job on that. We're going to take a very quick break. We're running into overtime, and we're running late. Next up on the docket, St. Lawrence women's basketball will join us. We'll talk East Region basketball with them. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com on Ustream. We'll be back in just about a minute or two.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
Are you an embarrassment on the dance floor? Do you confuse state capitals and read too many celebrity gossip magazines? Well, if you answered yes, you may have what it takes to adopt a teen from foster care, because teens don't need perfection, they need you. So if you think an MP3 is a computer virus, it's okay. There are thousands of teens in foster care who would love to put up with you. For more information, call 1-888-200-4005 or go to adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt Us Kids, and the Ad Council.
All season long, let D3Football.com be your home for all the Division III football action on the road to the Stag Bowl. From interactive blogs and message boards to columns from around the region and around the nation on your favorite teams, nobody covers NCAA Division III better than D3Football.com. As the playoffs approach, get the scoop on who's in and who's out from the experts who picked all 32 teams last year. Don't go anywhere else. Get the info from the source for Division III football at www.d3football.com.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
NCAA Women's College Basketball. All day, every day, our game. These women can really play. Filling it up, knocking them down, and bringing it home. It's basketball at its purest. For family fun and great entertainment, there's nothing like it. All day, every day, our game. NCAA Women's College Basketball.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. I'm your host, Dave McHugh, broadcasting thanks to D3Hoops.com. And, of course, Ustream. Should give them a shout-out, as always. We hope you are enjoying the show. Had lots to cover, and we got more to cover. Do I have the right coach in the right order here? St. Lawrence next, Chris?
St. Lawrence?
Yes.
Next, Dave. You got it.
Okay, I got a little out of my old little sync there. You gave me the clue with the right commercial. I just got out of sync. We're going to talk to St. Lawrence's women's basketball coach here shortly. Don't forget, in Wisconsin, Whitewater's coach is coming up as well. And, of course, we'll get a Great Lakes region report, which we've delayed already, from Lenny Reich as well. So got lots to cover. And technically the show's over in 33 minutes. But as anybody knows, we're definitely heading into overtime. Chris's future on this show is in question after the 1945 Chicago Cubs reference question. That is when the Billy the Goat was around, Chris. And as a Cubs fan, as a diehard of a Cubs fan, you are not high on my list anymore.
I'll remember that next time I'm putting the questions together.
Anything that disparages. The funny thing is he picked the Cardinals, which kills me more. The biggest rival. Anyway, we're jumping off of hoops here, and that's just pathetic. If you have any questions for us, email us at Hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. That's Hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. Join us in the chat room. I know we had a Millsaps fan in there listening in, and certainly thought the coach was doing a good job, so we appreciate them taking part. We also are on AOL IM at Hoopsville 2000. That's Hoopsville 2000. Also coming on Facebook. We're on Facebook.com/Hoopsville, or on Twitter at D3Hoopsville, or hashtag #Hoopsville, whichever you want to use. That's how you get a hold of us. And we would love to hear from you accordingly. We're going to jump into the East region with our next guest, as we alluded to already. And St. Lawrence women's basketball coach Dan Roger joins us. Coach, I think I said your name right, but I am not that confident.
Dan Roiger. You got
Roiger.
Yep.
Wasn't even close. Misunderstood, Chris. I apologize. Thank you so much for joining us. St. Lawrence off to a pretty decent start this season, Coach. 3-4 to start the year. Probably not what you had drawn up on the board, but you're now 15-4 overall. Do the math. You guys have won 12 in a row. Last loss was to Madai, 12-10 on December 10 is what I'm trying to say, on the road. And when the loss before that was at Hartwick. The night, 5 nights beforehand, you lost to Ithaca and you lost to Amherst. Amherst, at the score, by the way, 93-63. I would consider you in the game. Since then, you guys have been on a tear, and certainly have beaten up on the Liberty League.
Yeah, I don't know if beaten up would be the correct term, but we've been playing well lately, and have played well against the good teams and good enough against the teams that we should beat. But we did have a tough start, Dave. We started 3-4, but this year, with the way our schedule played out, 4 of those teams are really doing well, including the 4 that you mentioned that we lost to, and then we did beat Mount St. Mary's, which was a nice win for us. And all 7 of them were on the road. We were a little bit banged up at the time with a couple of injuries, including one to our senior guard and another one to our sophomore post, who was first-team all-conference last year. So, but it gave us a good opportunity to play some younger kids and develop some kids, and now that everybody's getting healthy, we're starting to play some pretty good basketball.
You alluded to it. You guys didn't have a home game until January 3rd.
Right.
At some point, your student body must have been angry at you.
Yeah, and actually, when we play this Friday, it'll be our first home game of the year where the students are in class. So, we haven't been able to perform in front of our home crowd really much this year, but it's toughened us up, and that was, part of the reason I made that schedule and tried to get as many good teams as possible, was to make us better in the long run.
Yeah, you have 5 left. William and Smith, who you beat by 15 earlier in the year and is sitting in second place behind you in the league, though behind you by 4.5 games. Rochester Tech after that, Bard, Vassar, and Skidmore. Did you make the schedule the way you did after looking at your conference schedule? I have never seen a conference schedule so oddly put together, and I mean that because, and I know you guys travel kind of in groups, but 4 on the road where you're last, and then 5 at home. Before that, it was 2, 1. It seems a little strange.
It's tough this year, yeah, and that's the straw that we drew. Next year we flip it around, so we play 8 of our first 11 at home, and then have to finish with 5 on the road. But with non-conference games, we had a couple teams that we were scheduled for home games that bailed out on us late in the year, and so I had to pick up some other games, and I picked up Hartwick and Madai, which were really good teams for us. But with the way their schedule was, they had to be at their place this year. Next year we get those at home. So, it is what it is. And, ultimately you play 8 home games in our conference and 8 road games. And so it all balances out. But it would be nice sometimes to have, a little bit more consistency.
You pointed 5 in a row on the road next year versus the 5 at home here. You were just played 4 on the road. There's got to be some way to even that off.
It's really tough for us because we do have travel partners.
Yeah, but still, I've seen it done.
Right, yeah. It is possible. Every 2 years it switches. Next year is the mirror image of this year's schedule, but then the year after that it'll change up, and we'll see what straw we draw then. But that's up to the commissioner, and I just...
Well, just for a devil's advocate, just as a devil's advocate, for example, Rochester Tech and William Smith on the 13th and 14th of January were on the road. Could have played them at home. Yes, it would have had a stretch there of home games, but then it at least would have broken. That's a bad example only because I'm putting more home games together, but there's got to be ways of just taking two sets and flipping them.
Right. Yep, and that would be beneficial. But I don't know how that would affect their schedule. Maybe that takes, them and makes them have 5 in a row on the road too. So,
doesn't make
I
much
think
sense.
It all works out.
Yeah, it does. You're right, but still, it makes it tough for you guys. Let's talk about your team though. Kelly Legg leading the way with 11.5 points a game, nearly 6 rebounds a game. Katie Egerton right behind her at pretty much 10 points a game and 4.5 rebounds. By the way, I should point out Legg has 30 blocks on the season as well. 6+ points out of both Iris Santoni and Casey Capello.
Capello,
And of course,
yep.
Casey Capello now following Hoopsville on Twitter, so we appreciate that. Just saw that during the show. And you're certainly got another whole handful of players with 5 points. I talked to Rod Wood from Mary Washington earlier. He had 2 players in double figures and then a whole host of players behind that were contributing with points everywhere. And he said it's a matchup problem certainly for everybody else. Looking at this, it's got to be a matchup problem for everybody else in your conference.
Well, I would think so. I mean, I would think we're a hard team to prepare for that very reason. We have probably 5 or 6 players this year that have led us in scoring in one game or another. And, the last 3 games our bench has produced 28, 20, and 33 points. And
pretty good.
That's really, really helpful when you can get that kind of production from some other kids. And several of those are freshmen right now, and we're really excited about them. But, Kelly's a very good player. Really, all 5 of my starters can be our leading scorer at any point in time. And, Casey's a great shooter, Casey Capello. Katie Edgerton has had an outstanding year. Iris Antoni's had her best year. And Erica Spera is a great athlete and can really do some damage inside when she gets it going. And then we have a host of kids coming off the bench that, can put up 10 to 12 points a game. And so it's good. We have a nice mix of inside and outside right now, and I like the balance and the depth of our team.
Yeah, I was going to say 4 freshmen, 6 sophomores, 1 junior, 4 seniors. You're certainly loaded to bear for the future. But I see also you seem to have a very guard-orientated system. Granted, there's one 5'11 guard, Allison Caddy, who's a freshman listed as a guard, and you could argue easily as a forward at 5'11, but obviously depends on how people play. Your forwards are very tall, 5'11", 6 foot, 6'2", but you seem a little guard heavy. Is that a disadvantage, or are you getting so much out of your inside play that it doesn't come into play?
Yeah, no, it hasn't been. And a couple of those kids, that might be listed on the roster as a guard are playing post for us. Cassie St. Hilaire is doing an outstanding job right now. We moved her in there at Christmas, and she's been a key to, our run recently. She's very athletic, and she's not as tall, but she has a way of getting around posts, and she's an excellent defender. She plays defense 4 or 5 inches taller than she is. And, on offense, she's the kind of player who presents the mismatch because if it's a slightly slower post, she's going to be able to go right around them and score. And, so she's doing a good job. Katie Abramski is a super athlete who has done a whale of a job for us and is all over the boards. And she's another 5'11 post, but she's got exceptional quickness for her size and is able to get around people and get to the basket. So, we're not super tall, but we do have a strong inside game, and it's not been as consistent as, I would like right now, but that's the challenge of coaching.
You're in your 3rd season at St. Lawrence, certainly have made impressive runs. You finished 2nd place in the conference 2 years ago, 1st place last year. You're on your way to finishing 1st this year. Clearly, there's no secrets with your team. You're clearly reloading pretty well. You've got a former Saints captain, former D3Hoops.com All-East region as your assistant coach. You certainly seem to have all the right pieces in place up at St. Lawrence right now.
Yeah, I like where we're at. It's a great school to be a coach at. it's a wonderful school to attract kids to. It's got a great campus. It's got really solid academics, and we have administration support. Athletics is a big deal at St. Lawrence because our college believes that athletics provides another venue to further develop our student athletes, and so we've got a lot of support, and combined with our athletic facilities, which are excellent, and in the academics, I've been able to attract really, really good students. And my goal is not to be a flash in the pan; it's to be consistently good. And we hope to compete for championships every year. It's a tough league. Other schools are doing a great job too, and so we have to keep battling. But I do like where we're at right now, and hopefully we can keep it going.
For anybody who's not familiar where St. Lawrence is, you guys are up in Canton, New York, which is up near Potsdam, up near Adirondack State Park, well north of Utica and Syracuse, northeast of Watertown. Certainly not an easy place to get to, not an easy place during the winter. How do you attract a player to come to your school and to come out into nearly the pretty much the Canadian area of New York?
Yeah, well, it's a great school, and it's well recognized around the Northeast, and so there's a great alumni network as well, and so a lot of students have heard about it. When I mentioned St. Lawrence right away, I think there's some name recognition there. We have really, really outstanding athletic facilities, and that's helpful. And certainly having a tradition in basketball, the good players want to be part of that. And, they're attracted to that. We have excellent academic program. And even though we're an expensive school, we have a good financial aid program. So, I think it's all the pieces come together. And, we are up north, if you will. But, the kids that are looking at us, they're going to experience winter somewhere. It's not like they're comparing Canton with Florida.
Well, you can come to Baltimore. We haven't experienced anything this year.
Well, we still don't have snow on the ground. So it's not a bad winter for us either.
No, not at all, considering how north you guys are.
Yep.
Obviously, the Great Lakes don't play a major role for you guys unless the wind is really blowing strangely. But still, no snow up in the Adirondacks. How's that for you?
Yeah, there's a little snow in the mountains. We just came through there last weekend, but we're in the St. Lawrence Valley, and it's always a little bit warmer here, and so we don't have any snow on the ground as of tonight.
Well, interesting. Obviously, the rest of the way, 5 games. We mentioned them, or I think it was 5. I'm now miscounting.
Mm-hmm.
We've mentioned them. We know what you have ahead of you. You're looking to close out the conference undefeated. You're 11-0 now. How realistic is undefeated, do you think?
About as realistic as the Green Bay Packers, probably.
Ooh.
It's going to be tough. It's hard to be consistent game after game. William Smith is a really good team, and that's going to be a battle. And RIT is playing better and better as they get used to the conference. Skidmore gave us a real challenge at their place in the first game, and they're well coached and will be tough. And Vassar has been our nemesis for the last 3 years, and so we have some tough games. We got them all on the road. But we had to step up in those games, and that's what we're going to have to do again, to protect our home court. But we're excited where we're at, and hope to keep the streak going right now.
I'll ask you about Skidmore really quickly because it looked like they were having a heck of a season, but hit a 3-game slide, and it started with you guys on the 24th of January. Then they lost to Union by 10, and they lost to William Smith by 3.
Mm-hmm.
Is this just a Skidmore team that Coach Bennett is just struggling with right now, or do they just hit a rough spot there? By the way, you have 5 games left. They've got 8, and I believe because some of them have had to be rescheduled due to weather.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Skidmore's got a really nice club, and I don't know what happened to them last weekend. They played us right down to the wire. And it was an overtime game, and we had everything. We had our hands completely full. But every game it presents a different matchup, and some teams you match up well against, and some teams you don't. But I'm sure they're going to get it back together, and they'll be battling right to the end for a playoff spot in our conference, I'm sure.
Very good, Coach. I appreciate you coming on the show here, taking some time to talk about your team.
My pleasure, Dave. Thanks for having me.
As always, though, we do allow you to have the final word. So any final thoughts you want to share with those who are listening tonight?
Well, no, I don't think so. It's just been a fun ride that we're having right now, and we're trying just to get better and better. We've got a couple more weeks before our season ends and playoff starts, and then, we'll see if an NCAA bid is in line for us. And, it will be if we win the tournament, and that's what we're setting our eyes on. But, like every coach in the country right now, our goal is to start peaking and playing better and better. So whenever the end comes, we go down playing our best basketball.
Well, good to hear. Congratulations on the year that's been so far. Good luck the rest of the way. Coach Rozier, did I say it right?
You got it.
Good.
Thanks.
Wanted to make sure I got it right once.
All right.
Coach Rozier
Thanks a
joining
lot.
us. Thank you so much, Coach. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye, Coach Dan Rozier from St. Lawrence. We appreciate him taking the time. We're going to stall for a few minutes here, or a few seconds, as Chris gets our next coach up on the line. But again, St. Lawrence in the Liberty League, leading it at 11-0, 15-4 overall on a 12-game winning streak. They have 5 games left to play this weekend against William Smith and Rochester Tech. Then they're against Bard and Vassar the following weekend and finish the season at home against Skidmore. All 5 of those, we should say, are at home. Just realized I may have been invisible on Hoopsville 2000. I apologize for that, folks. My IM likes to act up. But that is one way to get a hold of us. Hoopsville IM is Hoopsville 2000 is your AOL IM. Hoopsville 2000. You can also join us on email at hoopsville@d3hoops.com. That's hoopsville at d3hoops.com. You can also join us on Facebook at facebook.com/hoopsville, on Twitter at d3hoopsville. In fact, while I'm talking to you, we will tweet ourselves our latest update. So forgive my brain for thinking 3 times slower than I'd like it to. Coach Pat Miller from Wisconsin-Whitewater will be joining us here momentarily. I forgot the most important part. Yeah, you can follow us on Twitter and get these updates whenever you want. You can hear me typing. I'm trying to be interactive. And we hope you will join us as well. There we go. Very good. The tweet has been tweeted. Joining us on the Hoopsville hotline. And we are very happy to say thanks. The number 4 team in the country, the Wisconsin-Whitewater men's basketball team, and Coach Pat Miller joins us on the line. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville.
Oh, thanks, Dave. It's great to be here.
I certainly appreciate you taking some time to talk about the WIAC and yourselves, a little bit about the West region, but first and foremost, let's see here. 19-2 overall, 10-2 in the conference. Your losses coming to those pesky Pointers of Stevens Point. They've tripped you up twice. 79-77 on the road at their place, and then they got you pretty good 71-60 at home. Besides those 2 games, your season has been terrific. What happened in those games?
I think it was interesting. The first game up at Stevens Point, they played great. They shot 67% from the floor. Yeah. And, we've been a pretty good defensive team. I think we're holding teams under 40% in field goal percentage for the year. So just didn't really, give them a lot of credit. They took care of business up there. And then our home game was one of our few just poor performances of the year. And I thought, Stevens Point really came to play. Chris Davis, our leading scorer and rebounder, was coming off an injury. He had missed the previous 2 games with an MCL injury, and he just wasn't himself. And, we've had a great year, but really relying on Chris Davis and his productivity, and that was his season low. He had 10 points in that game, and as I said, he just really didn't play well, not a lot of confidence coming off the knee injury.
Interestingly enough, you're tied with Stevens Point technically in the WIAC, though those 2 losses will come into play should you remain tied, and you'll finish number 2, at least for home court in the WIAC tournament. Is that a concern that you may have to go on the road and play the Pointers at their own place to get an automatic bid in the NCAA tournament?
Not particularly. We have so much in front of us right now. We still have to go to Platteville and to Superior and to River Falls. So we have a lot of work to do. And, believe it or not, Stevens Point is a place we've played well. I think our guys enjoy playing there, and I think they would, enjoy the opportunity to have another shot at them. So once we get into that point of the year, I'm not even overly concerned, to be honest with you, whether we're at home on the road. You'd obviously rather be at home, but I think our guys will handle that road environment well.
Let's talk about Let's talk about the conference a little bit more. River Falls, as you point out, right behind you guys by half a game, tied in the loss column at 2 with 9 wins, 15-5 overall. And then there's a good drop off before we get to Eau Claire and Superior at 6-6. River Falls seems to be an enigma. Everyone's trying to figure them out. Last year, they certainly had a heck of a finish to the season before stumbling. This year, I don't think anyone's figured them out. Is this a WIAC conference where River Falls can sneak up on people, or does everyone kind of know what goes on with River Falls and they're battling it as much as you and the Pointers are?
Oh, I don't think they're not sneaking up on anyone. They have very good players, and Shane Manner's been an outstanding player in the conference, both at Superior and at River Falls. So they're an established team. They're an experienced team. And I think, what you see in our conference right now is really different matchups. Stevens Point, for example, has great guard play with the Tillema brothers, not a lot of size up front, whereas River Falls has very good size up front. They're very deep on their front line. So you just have contrasting teams in terms of their ability to do different things. And then we're kind of in the middle. We don't have a huge front line, but we have a serious scoring threat in Chris Davis from the block, and we have pretty solid perimeter players. So, the River Falls, they're not going to sneak up on anybody. Everybody knows they're good, and it's going to be a battle, I think, down to that last weekend.
Certainly River Falls, no real surprises from a lot of people, but an interesting team nonetheless. Of course, Eau Claire, Superior, La Crosse, Platteville, Stout, and Oshkosh are going to try and play spoiler roles along the way here. You do have Platteville and Superior on the road coming up starting. You actually have this weekend off, which is certainly an interesting situation for you guys. You don't see that usually this time of year. Then you have Platteville and Superior. Then you got Oshkosh, and then at home to finish off your home schedule, and River Falls to finish off the road schedule. How do you keep the team focused with 4 games remaining in the regular season, especially with an odd weekend off here?
Well, I think the bye weekend is going to be good for us. We've had a tough schedule. We've played a lot of good teams, and I think we're a little worn out. We were at La Crosse last night, which is a long midweek trip for us. So I think we're going to be able to use today and tomorrow to really work on some of the things we need to get cleaned up, and then Monday go back and start preparing for Platteville. But I think at this point in the year, I think our guys are aware of what's at stake in every game that we play, and I also believe they're aware of what's at stake in terms of potential NCAA tournament bids, and whether it's a Pool C or trying to get the automatic bid. So I think this is a team that's played very hard and played very well, and hopefully we'll start to play our best basketball as we move towards closer towards March.
How much do you guys talk about that? How much do you talk about what is the automatic bid? What is the Pool C bid? What do you need to do to be in position for an NCAA tournament bid? How much is that part of the conversation?
We talk about it quite a bit because it's so different for a lot of our guys from what they're accustomed to watching the Division I brackets come out. So, we feel like we need to educate them. So, for example, we try to play teams like Whitworth. We try to play Illinois Wesleyan to have some good comparison games and some good quality region games. And I think we've done a great job with that this year. Even Edgewood is a team that's a solid team in the Midwest. So we talk quite a bit about it and the importance of games and just the importance of every game. Just that, I thought at La Crosse, they're a team that has some quality wins. They beat Gustavus, who's leading the MEAC. So, even getting a sweep against them, I think, is important and can be significant once you get to tournament time.
You mentioned Illinois Wesleyan. You had a 12-point win over them. Whitworth, you had a pretty good win against them by 15. Certainly some good out-of-conference victories. Let's talk about your team a little more specifically. 24 points pretty much for Chris Davis, 12.5. Sorry, I'm going to skip Alex because I know there's other things. 11 points out of Luke Noble. Clearly, those are your 2 big guys. Chris Davis seems to be unstoppable, though, at 24 points, and he's collecting 8.6 rebounds.
Well, and he's also incredibly efficient. He shoots over 50% from the field, 42% from 3. Chris is an interesting player. And, if you watch Moneyball, if you saw that movie, and they're sitting around and they're talking about the eye test, and if you remember a couple years ago, we had Dustin Mitchell, who was 6'9", All-American, all cut up, ran well, looked great. He passed the eye test for sure, and Chris Davis simply does not. If you walked into a gym and you didn't know him and you were picking teams, you might not pick him.
Really?
Because you might not unless you saw him play. He doesn't have a great body. He doesn't have a great motor. but he's just incredibly skilled and he's incredibly efficient. And he's just a matchup nightmare at our level because he steps out and shoots threes so well. When he has bigger guys on him, if you try to match him up with a smaller player, he's really strong down low and has great touch. So he's just a guy. I don't know if he's got maybe the respect he should have, just based on people watch him and they kind of say, is this guy really that good? And Billy Bean, I think, would look at his numbers and his productivity and declare that he's pretty good. But some of the things he does, his motor, like I said, you just get some people shake their head. But he's an exceptional player, a really good talent, a really unselfish kid, and we're as good as he is. And you don't want to be as one-dimensional as a guy scoring 24 points a game, but we have some limitations around him, and those guys have done a pretty good job and stepped up. We've had different people step up, so we're able to continue to win games. But we're definitely as good as Chris Davis allows us to be.
Well, Chris is clearly going to have more than 500 points before the end of the regular season. He's probably going to have over 200 rebounds by the end of the season, period. As you point out, shoots about 56% from the floor, 42% from the arc, 88% from the line. There's also some interesting stats, 27 steals, 36 assists. He only has 12 blocks, but he has 27 steals. He certainly seems to know where his team is. He certainly knows how to contribute on all sides of the floor, it seems.
Well, he does. He knows how to play, and he's not a guy who plays above the rim by any stretch of the imagination. That's why you don't see a lot of blocks. But he anticipates well. Most of his steals come in more post-up situations where he just positions himself well, and he's quick. He's quick to the ball. And again, for a guy who I would consider, and I would tell him this to his face, so that he's clearly he is a non-jumper. He's not a guy that elevates and plays above the rim, but he has great timing. He has great anticipation, and he just knows how to play. He passes very well. So he's a difficult guy to double team because he finds his teammates and they capitalize off of that. So, he's been a lot of fun to coach. This is his second year in our program. He came from a junior college, and probably the single regret I have is that we weren't able to have the opportunity to work with him for 4 years because I think as impressive as his numbers are, he still has a lot of upside. There's still a lot of things he can learn and he'll get better at. And he's continued to progress. He's clearly much better this year than he was last year and was making progress until his injury, and now he's starting to get back into his rhythm, and his productivity's gone up the last couple games.
One of 3 seniors on the team, Alex Edmonds being the other. Is there, and you talk about some of the limitations you've had with this squad, though you're still outscoring teams by about 15 points a game. Is this a squad that can get to Salem?
I think we can. I think things will have to go well for us. I look at the Whitworth game. We played very well in the second half, and we had some guys step up and hit some perimeter shots. And some of those guys have been inconsistent throughout the course of the year. A guy whose numbers don't jump out at you this year is Cody Odegaard, who really shoots the ball well. He's just struggled this year from the perimeter, and he's a guy I feel like he can get it going at any time, and he's capable of giving you 6 to 8 3-pointers in a game. He just hasn't done that or hasn't done it on a consistent basis. So I think, as well as we've played defensively, having a player of Chris's caliber certainly puts us in position, and if some of our players around Chris can step up and knock down shots, then I think we can make a good run.
Clearly, the road has been traveled by other Whitewater teams, maybe the football team. Is there any sense, what's the feeling on campus, for example? You guys are having such a great season. The football team winning yet another national title in Salem. The women's team has certainly been in the conversation quite a bit in recent years, and I'm double-checking so I don't misspeak for this year. But what is the sense on campus of Whitewater athletics?
It's I think a great source of pride. It's something that the administration has committed themselves to. And our football team's just done a remarkable job, and their success has been a benefit to the entire athletic department. I think it's aided all of us in recruiting. The amount of publicity and recognition that they've been able to achieve it has been fabulous for our university. The only problem with our football team is, we're 19-2, and I think we're kind of having an off year because they're just not accustomed to them ever losing. Winning the conference is not even a question, and it's almost gotten to the point where it's almost a foregone conclusion that they're going to win national championships. So they've just created incredible expectations, and they've done a great job. But yeah, I think people are excited. We have a different type of team than we've had in the past. I think we're typically known for being very athletic and high-scoring teams, and this year we're a different type of team. We're more of a defensive-oriented team. We don't score as quickly. I think we're efficient offensively, but we're not beating people 85-70 like we used to in the past. So I think people are excited. They like this team. They play very well together. They pass the ball. So I think as the season's gone on and we've registered wins, I think there was a lot of doubt early. We were outside the top 25, and it was more, well, let's just kind of see how they play and how they progress. And I think we've answered a lot of questions. So there's starting to be more excitement.
Certainly. Hey, Coach, I appreciate you taking the time to join us. I don't want to cut it short, but at the same time, I know you're just as busy as the rest of us. So I appreciate you coming on. Obviously, a tough road ahead of you just because it is the WIAC. 4 teams remaining conference schedule ahead of you, at least for the tournament ahead of you, I should say. So good luck the rest of the way. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who are listening?
No, I just appreciate having me on, Dave, and it's you guys do great work. You're a great source of information, and I know all the people in Division III, definitely at Whitewater, appreciate all the work you guys do.
Well, thank you, Coach. I appreciate the kind sentiment, and good luck the rest of the way. We certainly are looking forward to see how the WIAC shapes up and see how many teams maybe get out to the NCAA tournament and see if any of them can make it to Salem.
All right, sounds great. I appreciate it.
All right, take care, Coach. Coach Pat Miller from Whitewater joining us here on Hoopsville. Appreciate doing that. Throwing an audible at Chris. We're going to get Rusty Egan on the line next. Going to do this without a break, sir. Yes, we are going into overtime without a break. If you have any questions for us, email us at hoopsville at d3hoops.com. That is hoopsville at d3hoops.com. Your AOLIM is hoopsville2000. That is hoopsville2000. You can also join us in Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. You can also join us on Twitter at D3Hoopsville. That is at D3Hoopsville. And you can also use the hashtag Hoopsville. AOLIM is running. We were somehow invisible for most of the show, but that is running, so please feel free. There's also the chat room as well, so please don't shy away, as it were. So, yeah, sorry, just looking around at any comments you may have. We hope you will not shy away. Reminder, programming note, Sunday's show will not air at its regularly scheduled time. It will not air on Sunday at all. We will actually air Hoopsville on Monday instead. Chris and I will be here 8 to 10 on that evening, Monday. Then we're back at it Thursday, 8 to 10, back to Sunday next weekend. 7 to 9. Don't forget, we'll also have an extended show for Selection Sunday coming up in 3.5 weeks, and we'll be on the air for Matchup Monday, where we hope to have both committee chair members on the show as well. We'll dedicate a good amount of time to them, but we'll also get some coaches on. That show will probably air about 7:30 on the 27th. And for all of the information and news you need leading up to Selection Sunday and Matchup Monday, make sure you log on to d3hoops.com, which has certainly helped us broadcast for years as well. Now joining us on the Hoopsville hotline, we finally get to our Great Lakes Regional Report, and that means bringing in our esteemed colleague Lenny Reich, Mount Union Sports Information Director. I realized in hindsight, bad timing to have Whitewater lead ahead of Mount Union.
Yeah, I thought a great sense of humor by you guys to have us go off there. And I can say we actually have a wrestler who wrestled against a Whitewater guy. He's ranked number 2 in the country at heavyweight, and their guy's ranked number 3.
Oh.
So our guys won that. Our guys won head-to-head against him twice, so we're doing okay there. And obviously a year ago, or 2 years ago, a year ago, our women's basketball team played, Mount Union played Whitewater in women's basketball and won that game a year ago. So we're doing all right with the balance of things, but it's funny how we now tend to find each other at a lot of places. You know, it's kind of like you buy a new car and you think you're the only one that has that car, and then you start driving around, you see everybody has that car. Us and Whitewater you start seeing each other at all kinds of different events and things. But great program, and I still think it's great for Division III to have two great recognized programs that do a lot of stuff, not just in football but in all their athletics.
Absolutely. Of course, this is the first time that we've had Whitewater lead Mount Union. We are not planning on 6 more at this point in time.
Yeah, you didn't tell them that for the next 6 weeks we have to do this back to back to back.
You probably would have turned down the interview request. Let's be real.
Right.
Lenny Wright.
Great Lakes, wild wild night last night in especially in the President's Conference, which
let's start
I know
there.
Our last report we didn't get to, and so after we found out there's a lot of President's Athletic Conference fans.
Yeah,
that
sorry about
listen
that,
to
everybody.
Hoopsville. So, but no, it's
Well, we've
it's,
gotten Bethany on before, so I hope
true.
they're feeling a little better about that. But that being said,
That being said, they had a wild night on the men's side. Teal, their defending champ, took their first loss in conference play last night to St. Vincent, and Bethany, who was right on their tails. They
wait a minute, hold
lost
on a
to
second.
Grove City.
Hold on. What did you say about Teal? You're talking about men, right?
Teal men lost last night to St. Vincent.
Yep, that's not in our D3Hoops.com scoreboard.
Yep, they lost to St. Vincent last night. I don't have the score in front of me.
Neither do I.
I had it earlier, and the biggest thing from the game was that
78-64.
Yep. One of the big things from the game was that Blair Rosenblatt, who's the MVP of the pack from last year, he was ejected from the game after a couple flagrant fouls and a technical foul. And so obviously he had 18 points and 13 rebounds on the night. And so he's a junior, and they play Thomas More on Saturday, which also...
Who just tripped up Bethany.
Who just tripped up Bethany last night, and Thomas Moore's at 9-3 in the conference. Bethany's at 9-2. Teal's 11-1. They have a 9-team conference, so you get some odd matchups and numbers sometimes. But yeah, so it's been a like I said, Teal's appeared to be kind of cruising through the conference schedule on the men's side. Got tripped up a little bit last night, and then with Bethany getting tripped up, kind of brings everybody back into play, including St. Vincent, who's 8-3. In conference play, 15-5 overall. So yeah, a lot of competition on the President's Conference on the men's side.
Do you think Teal can win this? I mean, is Bethany good enough? Obviously, Thomas More and St. Vincent are going to try and play spoiler here, and certainly Bethany's poised in position. But can Teal take this loss and win it? Is Teal really the best team in this conference? Is what I'm getting at.
Well, I think Teal, from a talent standpoint, probably from top to bottom, is probably the best team in the conference. Now, Bethany also their best player, which he's got to be on the all-name team in Division III this year. British Alexander,
absolutely
a senior. He was injured last night in the Thomas More game, so don't know what his status is going forward. I don't think it's anything serious, but another thing that will be in the back of Pac fans' minds as they head into games on Saturday. And these two teams, Bethany and Teal, play each other on February 11th, a week from Saturday at Teal. So so I mean, I think obviously sometimes Dave, a team that runs out to a long streak, maybe takes a loss, might refocus that team or get that team recentered.
Sure.
And so that might be something that Teal. Not necessarily such a thing. I don't necessarily believe in such a thing as a good loss, but I mean, it might be a thing that
well timed.
Can well-timed or turn them around or get them in a position where they can move through into their conference tournament. On the women's side in the pack, appears to be a two-horse race. St. Vincent and Thomas More, both 12-1. Thomas More has long history recently in the conference with success and winning the conference. Obviously, at one point last year, they were the number one team in the country. Then their coach decided to go over to be an assistant coach at Xavier, and they graduated some really great players. But they have another good one in Allison Long at Thomas More, and also at St. Vincent. Probably the early favorite for maybe Player of the Year in the pack is Brittany Sedlock, who averages double-double a night, 15.5 rebounds or 15.5 points and 10 rebounds a game. So, and those two teams play in a couple weeks as well.
By the way, the oddity of the conference: Thomas More 12-1, St. Vincent 11-1. We talk about the odd numbers there. Both teams' next opponent is Teal.
Well,
both teams.
They have 10 on the women's side. They have 10 teams on the women's side of the conference.
But both teams, their next opponent is Teal.
Yeah, I know.
I think. Unless I have that wrong. Hold on.
On the women's side, the pack has.
Maybe I don't have a score. Hold on. I might not have a score. I don't have a score. St. Vincent's next opponent, because there's no score, because they played last night.
Yeah, they played.
Sorry. That's how I got screwed up.
Yeah, they have 10 teams on the women's side because they have an all-women's school, Chatham University in Pittsburgh, an all-women's school in their conference. So they have 9 on the men's side and 10 on the women's side. So yeah, on the women's side, St. Vincent, Thomas More, both 12-1. Waynesburg is at 10-3. 2 games back, but 15-5 overall. So obviously Waynesburg can if they can get on a run, they can jump into that. But it's a lot of competition in the pack, a lot of good teams in the league, and so we're glad we were able to squeeze them through and keep them moving. And really one of the only a conference where some of the other conferences right now don't have very many races. I think when you look in Michigan, Hope on the men's side, 19-1, 9-0. They've got a 3-game lead already. They appear to be, kind of pulling away from the field there. On the women's side, in the MIAA, Calvin's 20-0, 12-0 in the league. They've got a 3-game lead. So it looks like those teams are kind of, separating themselves from the group a little bit. I think in the NCAC on the men's side, what was a wild race early in the year appears to be getting a little bit of separation. Wittenberg's 10-1 in the conference, 16-4 overall. Worcester is 8-3, 17-3. So the funny part, after DePaul coming in and Wabash and Hiram and Ohio Wesleyan and everybody, it still ends up being Wittenberg and Worcester kind of pulling away from the group.
And it's almost disappointing because Wabash had been on a tear and then has seemed to have self-destructed. They have lost 4 out of their last 7. Yes, they got a win over DePaul, and I think that is a big win for DePaul or for Wabash on the road to right the ship before they go on and take Worcester and Wittenberg. But before that, they had lost to Denison at home. They had lost to Ohio Wesleyan on the road. They smoked Kenyon, but then they lost. They weren't even in the game, let's argue, with Wittenberg. It was an 18-point loss. And they had lost 2 games prior to that to DePaul. Before that, it was just Transylvania.
I think people were talking about kind of a changing of the guard in the conference, maybe, and teams like Wabash, and then even Ohio Wesleyan, who has lost 2 of their last 4 games. That it was, I think people really thought, oh, this is going to be the year. It's not going to end up being Wittenberg and Worcester, and now all of a sudden, with 3 weeks left in the year, it's Wittenberg and Worcester again.
But that being said, I would have expected Worcester to be on top of this conference. They made it to the championship game last year. Certainly brought back plenty. Wittenberg, though, is on top at 10-1, 2-game lead on Worcester, though Worcester has a better overall record by a game.
Right.
Clearly, their final game is going to matter, and I'm double checking.
Well, that's not the final. It's the Saturday before the final game.
Right. There you go. So the third to last game
at Wittenberg. Worcester has left there at Ohio Wesleyan, at Wittenberg, and then they've got home games against Allegheny and DePaul. So Worcester,
not an easy stretch.
Not an easy stretch. They have Wabash as well this Saturday at home. So it's not an easy stretch of games, and obviously early in the year Ohio Wesleyan got a win, or didn't beat Worcester, but got a win against Wittenberg, and so I think it's obviously not a done deal yet that it's going to be Wittenberg and Worcester, but I think it's 2 teams that are obviously in that perennial driver's seat or in that position to do things. On the women's side of the North Coast, looks like DePaul 3-game lead, 11-0 in the conference.
Welcome to the conference.
Welcome to the conference. And I think a lot of people, given the history of DePaul's program, I don't think anybody's really surprised about this or surprised that they would come in the league and kind of put themselves in the position they're in. And Kenyon started out very good on the women's side, and then just kind of what ran in. They've lost 2 out of their last 3 games, and kind of opened up the door where DePaul's kind of taken advantage.
DePaul,
and then
winners of 17 straight, we should add as well.
Yeah, quite a streak. And then in the Ohio Athletic Conference, where they're taking no prisoners on the men's side, definitely, as teams are knocking each other around as they usually do.
They're killing each other this year.
It's Capital and John Carroll are 10-3, which, as we talked about before, traditionally the winner of this conference is not going to be a team. Not too many times there's going to be a 17-1 or 18-0 or something in the conference. Not uncommon, and Capital and John Carroll have already played each other and, of course, split.
Why not?
Why not? But Marietta, very interesting. Marietta's only a game back at 9-4. The last week of the season, Marietta hosts both John Carroll and Capital in the last week of the season. They host Capital first, John Carroll in the regular season finale. So Marietta, the defending conference champs,
which I think some people have forgotten about, by the way.
Yeah, well, obviously Trevor Halter, their All-American, he has been injured, had surgery before the season. They've worked him back in. He hasn't, he's been off and on playing, but still Kevin Knabb, who's their great forward, probably, if not the best big man in the OAC, he's right there, and he has played very well for them. And they're like I said, they're in position where they can, they can do some things and have the teams in front of them coming to their place. They've got now their hitches, and in this conference, this is difficult. They play 3 straight games on the road. Now, granted, they're at Ohio Northern, then at Mount Union, then at Heidelberg, but they've got those 2 games at home, so they've got to just get through those things. And it's obviously a conference that you can't look too far ahead on your schedule at any point without getting tripped up. On the women's side, Mount Union's 12-1.
I knew you were saving that.
I was saving them for the last. Well, they've won 14 games in a row, which ties a school record for wins, and some of us are old enough to have still been around the last time that Mount Union had won 14 in a row, but that was back in 97-98, which ironically, the only reason I bring it up is Susie Vennett, the head coach of the Raiders. She was on that team that lost their opener, then won 14 in a row, then lost a regular season game to Capital, then won 14 in a row again, and lost in the Final Four, the national semifinal to Southern Maine.
That was a good Southern Maine team at the time.
That was a fantastic Southern Maine team. WashU eventually went on to win the national title that year, but Southern Maine and WashU, and of course that was back when there was a third-place game, so Mount Union got to win the third-place game and finish that season 29-3.
Come on, who was it? Who'd they beat?
Who did they beat? Oh, now you're putting me on the spot. You put me on the spot.
I figured you had everything else down.
I had everything else down to nothing. But I'm gonna.
I don't even know the answer, so I'm not even going to pretend.
I'm going to get killed tomorrow. I'm trying to remember who it was off the top of my head. I know they beat Calvin. I know she beat Calvin early in the tournament. She had a runner at the buzzer to beat Calvin in the second round, and I had all the stuff. I had all the stuff in front of me, but they are 12-1, and they are 19-1 in the 19-1 overall, and so obviously, looking good when those first set of regional rankings probably come out. I would imagine, Calvin at 20-0, and then Mount Union at 19-1. Ohio Northern, though, 1 game behind Mount Union at 11-2 in the league, 17-3 overall, and those 2 teams still get to play each other, and they will play each other next Saturday, the 11th. And that game will be out at Ohio Northern.
By the way, there's a link on your website called all-time NCAA tournament results.
Probably does. Yeah,
I got there faster than you did.
You got there faster than me?
And you beat Rowan.
I beat Rowan. There you go.
Anyway, moving on.
I can save myself tomorrow when I go into work and get picked on or whatever else.
There you go.
But no, it's so obviously, the women's sides in the conference have been very strong.
Yeah.
Mount Union had their second 1,000-point score of the season last night.
Pretty impressive.
Point guard Rosa Lamattina. Well, even more impressive, they have a third one that should hit it probably within the next couple of weeks. A senior, Amanda Rose, and they will be one of only 2 teams currently in the country that'll have 3 1,000-point scorers playing on the floor at the same time.
By the way, speaking of which, I thought I read something about one of the other teams.
I believe it's Bowdoin is the other team.
Yeah, but I think there's another one knocking on the door.
There might be.
I could be wrong. Anyway, go ahead. Sir.
But no, I mean, obviously that's a really impressive feat, an impressive run by by the program to have those 3 1,000-point scores. And as we were going through some of the old archives today to look up these winning streaks, we noticed some great. Obviously, we could ransom some old pictures of Coach Vennett, and of course, bringing back memories of the fact. And a lot of people know this that have kind of followed Susie's career, that she in college had 2 quadruple doubles in the same season, an NCAA all-division record where she had 2 quadruple doubles, had 10 triple doubles in her career, but had 2 quadruple doubles that were points, rebounds, steals, and assists. And obviously, those of us that were lucky enough to see Coach Vennett actually play, and now my own personal bias aside, with her now, would know that she was definitely one of the best players at this level that people have seen in a long time, and is obviously, thankfully for us, she's as good a coach, even better coach than she was as a player. So.
It has worked out certainly in your benefit.
Yeah.
Hey, quickly, let's just talk Maya. MIAA is what I'm trying to say. I got all jacked
I
up
was going to
there.
say you were going to really make me go to my
Yeah, let's go to MIAC,
find out
Lenny.
some stuff from Minnesota.
Let's go Minnesota on you. No, MIAA, Hope on the top on the men's side, 19-1, 9-0 overall. Adrian 6-3, Trine 5-4, Kelvin 5-4, Calvin 10-10 in the season. Obviously, Hope in the driver's seat there. I don't think there's anything to really talk about except that Adrian is 3 games back. Clearly, Hope is showing that they're a pretty solid team. Everyone has question marks until about this point in the season, and I think Hope's answered those.
Yeah, I think, like you said, Dave, I think this is the time of year where you start to separate, where the contenders from the pretenders a little bit, and start to see, which teams are going to be teams that are going to be around and going to make a long run. And I don't think any of us, like you said, would be surprised if a team like Hope, is able to get on a long roll. And I know just what you were talking to the Whitewater coach in the last segment, just about teams that really are equipped to go to Salem or make that kind of run. And obviously, a team like Hope and a program like theirs can be equipped to get on that kind of a run.
Sure.
And is obviously tested, to be prepared to do those kind of things. And so I don't think anybody would be surprised. That on the same token, it's like most of the conferences in this region. You got to go on the road and win some games in some tough environments. And the arenas in the MIAA are great. And you never know what happens. And
sure.
Yeah, I think they've got. I think the great thing, Hope, and the thing I guess maybe that would worry people in the league is that Nate Snuggergood, and I'm sure I just butchered that, but he's a junior forward and has had a fantastic season and playing very well. Just in the last week, he's the reigning MIAA Player of the Week, and he's averaged 30 points in 2 games last week. And so I think people in the league, could be worried that this is a Hope program that's definitely on the rise and probably prepped to stay there for quite a while.
Yeah, absolutely. On the women's side, Hope is trying to catch up with Calvin. Calvin 20-0 overall, 12-0 in the conference. Hope right behind him, 17-3, 9-2, and then Albion behind them. This is an interesting setup because Hope is the host for the women's championship. Calvin is certainly positioning themselves to be a player in this one and probably get to host some games on the way. Conceivably, if Calvin played their cards right and kept winning, they wouldn't leave a 50-mile radius of their school.
Yeah, well, not even 50.
Not even 50. I'm being generous.
Not even 50. And and obviously, if people, I've been to the new facility at Hope. To the DeVos. I have not been to the remodeled, facility at Calvin. But I'm sure, they made sure it was as nice as the one at Hope, given the rivalry, if not nicer in some places, since it was built afterwards.
Oh, we could do that better.
Yeah, we could do that. Yeah, let's get we're going to get a shot at this. But yeah, and it would definitely be, obviously it would be great, for the Final Four. I'm sure, I'm sure that would be, obviously would make for just a phenomenal atmosphere in Grand Rapids and in the area to have a team like that. And yeah, I would agree that I think, given their facility and given their program and their history, that I would think obviously, if Calvin, keeps on the path they're going to be on, they're probably going to get to play some games in Grand Rapids. And then, obviously it sets up for them to keep it all right there. And so there's probably nothing more you need to do to motivate a program than to say, look, it's all sitting right in front of us and let's go. But I'm sure Hope will, saying the same thing, that they would want to, get that shot at them and probably nothing better than to knock them off. But they appear to be really poised. And obviously in their conference to have a 3-game lead this late in the season is a pretty good lead to have. So
Calvin will actually travel 30 miles down the road to take on Hope tomorrow. Saturday in Holland, Michigan. So,
which is probably the last shot. Obviously, I would think if you're Hope, that's got to be a must-win game right there. And obviously, they're still going to have to lose a couple more games for the conference, but you're going to have to at least get that game just to even kind of make it
interesting. Make it interesting. What else in the Great Lakes has caught your attention before we let you go?
Like I said, just the competitive play. I think like we talked about, that kind of turnaround in the NCAC men's standings, I think has been really surprising. I think obviously the stuff that happened in the PAC last night really kind of turned that conference on its ear. So it's going to make that conference interesting to watch. And I think all of us are just kind of anxiously awaiting how those first regional rankings are going to come out. What those are going to look like, and where things are going to go from there. It's still, there's still a lot of 3 weeks of basketball left in the regular season, and so I think it's, like you said, it's really a time for teams to kind of position themselves, get themselves in position to either make a run in their conference or make a run into their conference tournament. And obviously we've had some conferences, well, especially in the OAC, a new tournament format for the OAC, where the first two teams are going to get double byes to the semifinals, and so I think that's putting more pressure on teams to get in those first two spots, and even in the third and fourth spot to get a bye, to get a single bye, is going to be interesting. And it'll be interesting to see if the strategy that the conference is using to try and protect their top teams pays off, and especially on the men's side, where it appears, Capital and John Carroll are in that position where they can get there. I think it's in that league, in this league especially, it's a big difference only having to play 2 games to win the title, as opposed to the 5, 6, 7, and 8 place teams that'll have to play 4 games in 6 days to win the league.
By the way, to get back to your Mount Union women.
Okay.
Got an email that has some interesting facts on the women's side. There have been 11 groups going into this season of 3 or more individuals who have scored 1,000 career points on the same squad in the same year.
Wow.
Of those 11, 2 schools had 4 individuals. Those were North Central and Oglethorpe. Let's see. University of New England, get this, has accomplished it twice. 03, 04, and 10-11. And it says, although North Central and William Smith each had juniors who would go on to eclipse 2,000 points later in their careers, thus no school thus far has had 2,000 point scores simultaneously with at least 2 other 1,000 point scores. Now, here's the interesting tidbit. Going into this year, there were 3 schools in play to do this themselves. One is Babson, which we believe they have done, though this is heading into 2-1-12 games, so I'm not sure. Sarah Collins was 13 points away, so it's possible she did it. Of course, she's a junior, by the way.
Wow.
Mount Union, as you point out, Amanda Rose eclipsed the mark. I'm sorry, Lamatina.
Rose Lamatina.
But Rose is shy of the
She's
shark.
Yep.
The other team is Amherst. Lematonga McCormick has going into this weekend's games has 1,081 points. Caroline Stedman has 1,068 points, and Sharon Funukin, I had to think about it, 961 points. So how about that?
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, I don't know if anybody would thought that you would have that many people getting it that way.
It's unbelievable.
It is, and Amanda Rose on Mount Union side, she's at 979 right now. So she's 21 away, and then they would have a 1,100 point scorer in Corey Wheat, Rosa Lamatina, who just like I said went over 1,000 last night. She's at 1,008, and then Amanda Rose, and it's a Mount Union team that is exciting to watch. They're second in the nation in 3-point shooting, and they run and press 40 minutes a game. They played 20 girls last night, and so it keeps the scores tables hopping when that's Mount Union women's game, because there are subs at every dead ball, and it is wild action.
It's almost like football.
Almost. Not quite as big a roster, but almost.
No, we got to talk about that someday. But that's for another type of show. Hey, Lenny, I appreciate you joining us on Hoopsville as always. I appreciate your breakdown of the region, and maybe we'll get you on Selection Sunday. Give your take before we sign off. I should say your take on who you think's in and who's out, and who you think's hosting and such.
Yeah, well, it should be an interesting, like I said, it should be an interesting couple weeks. I think we're all anxiously awaiting these first polls, kind of just to see where everybody lands, and kind of how I know you were talking to the women's chair, last hour, and it's funny how the committees kind of take on personalities that are on that national committee, how, we've probably seen it more, obviously in football over the years, where as the chairs change, kind of some of the ways the rules are interpreted, the numbers are interpreted, can happen a little different way. So I thought you had some interesting questions for her. I thought she had some interesting answers, and I think it'll be
surprised they're not going to release that final regional ranking?
Yeah, I don't understand why that is such a. I don't understand why that's such a holdup, or why that wouldn't be something.
They don't want to be second guessed.
Yeah, well, but you're going to be more second guessed by not releasing
it. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I would think teams would want to know where they
stood.
And
absolutely.
So many other sports have done it. And that I would think that transparency is better than not being transparent or setting your.
You're setting yourself up.
Yeah,
you're setting yourself up
yeah.
to try and explain something in hindsight. Whereas if you give it out. Yeah, we have the information there. We might second guess it, but at least we know the information.
But I will give especially Holly Shealy credit at the NCAA for this, is that she is very good at, if something needs to be changed on the fly or looked at in process, that she will give it due diligence, I guess. So I mean, there's no guarantee, I guess, right now that might not change.
No, absolutely.
But I would think, and I would think, I don't see the. I guess maybe I don't see the harm in showing that. I mean, I don't see where that would be.
Here's
a
my
problem.
only other problem. Why can't both committees be doing the same thing?
Right, that as well, and like I said, I would want to know, if I was a coach and I was a team that wasn't selected, I would want to see on my schedule where, I would want to see where I fell. Was the computer number off somehow? And so as I'm getting my 12-13 schedule ready to roll, is there a certain way I should be making my schedule or other things? And I'm a big proponent in every game count routine. And that if you play a Division III team,
you're not going to get me there.
Well, I think if you're playing, especially
it goes
in
against
large
D3.
conferences. Well, but I think if you go and play a D3 team, I guess I can use my own program for an example right now. Is we went to Florida and played in a tournament over Christmas time against a very good Bates team from Maine, and played a great game and won that game. And we would get more credit for playing a team not as good in our own region, or playing a not as well developed program and beating that program handily, as opposed to going out and challenging a good program somewhere else.
I don't disagree that adage. I don't disagree. Go ahead.
Well, and I think you can't have it both ways. I mean, if you're going to call it a national tournament and you're going to set up the tournament that way,
it's been a national tournament for decades.
Yeah, but then make every game count. Make every game,
But in my point, and I've had this on Twitter as well, my point on that is you're going to give an unfair advantage to schools that can afford to travel. There are schools out there who can only afford a trip to Florida every 4 years. That means they're secluded to their region for the most part, or somewhat of their region. And so some schools out there aren't going to have that opportunity to travel and face off against the best teams in the country. So the teams that can afford to do that, and I know some teams that travel every single year, they clearly have a budget to do it, are going to have an advantage to go play that challenging team, win or lose. It's going to look better on their resume. And in the spirit of Division III, I don't know if that's fair to the student athletes. And I think you start making that whole Division IV thing is going to come back into play.
Well, but I think the counteract to that is that every conference is getting an automatic bid. There is
right.
A path,
so basically,
there's a path for everybody to get to the tournament. So
right, but
if we were only if the tournament was taking a mess of at-large teams, that or there was some way where there was a bigger thing for that, there's a path for every school to get to the tournament. Now, if a certain school, by philosophy, budget, whatever else, decides to travel to play the most competitive, a more competitive schedule, or play a better team somewhere else, they shouldn't be punished for that.
I'm not saying
I guess
punish
it should
them.
be raising the bar instead of lowering the bar, I guess.
But I'm not saying lower the bar either. I think we're fine where we are. My point is, I think that if you allow teams who can afford to travel and play whoever they want to play, you're giving them an unfair advantage because they're going to load their schedule up. They're going to diss literally those other schools that would like to challenge them in their own darn region and maybe next door. You're going to keep them from having those opportunities, and you're going to reward teams that go out there and play a tougher schedule, even if it's all the way across the country. If Amherst wants to travel to northwestern United States, and that game counts against a Whitworth, let's say, and those two teams are top in the country.
I think it gets some of the programs that are on those geographic islands and gives them a chance to.
I don't disagree there.
To
sure,
get into the mix.
But there's other ways to do that too. There's other ways to schedule. And for example, let me give you Hope. Hope men will argue that they are on a geographical island, that nobody wants to play them, and they load up with NAIA and non-Division III teams at the beginning of the season. Whereas Hope women, on the other hand, find schools to play at the beginning of their season that are Division III opponents. So, yeah, there's a geographical island out there for some, but there are some who figured that out. They figured out how to make that work. And I think allowing all games is a cop-out.
I guess I think some of that is flipping it around the other way of whether that works or doesn't work because, in-region winning percentage, obviously Hope's men not playing, some games against Division III competition, increases that chance of that percentage being higher. Now, obviously, it puts more premium that you can't, you have less room for error. You can't lose any of those games. But, I think, and at the end of the day, a lot of that comes down to that as well. You've got to win games no matter who you're playing, where you're playing, what you're playing. You've got to win games, and you have to have the best teams. And
by the way,
I wouldn't be as big a thing, I guess, and I've been big on this since automatic qualifiers came in a long time ago, is that I'm all for automatic qualifiers, and I think that speaks a lot to Division III philosophy. But I also think that in the Pool B and Pool C thing, it really should be, taking the next best teams that are out there, and basically having a true, I guess, group of at-large teams. And I think over time, they've slowly, I think obviously the train is moving toward the every game counting in the fact that they've continued to kind of expand what is a regional game. They've
expanded it as far as it can possibly go.
Right.
There are still problems.
You're basically half a step from it because it's 200-mile circle. It's all these geographic regions. I think it's it's goofy in Ohio.
But they're also talking about redoing the regions.
Right.
So they're going to get rid of this stupid thing where Maine and Maryland count, Maine and Pennsylvania don't.
Yeah, even better one, Dave, is Ohio, Pennsylvania don't count, but Ohio and North Carolina does. Provided if it's more than 200 miles away, our
Ohio, North Carolina.
Yeah, because it's in that legislative.
Oh, the legislative thing, right. I forgot where the line was. I forgot where the line was.
Not in that region, so.
Well, I agree, and I think they need to redraw the regions. I don't think you go to all games. I think you redraw the regions. I think that solves a lot of things for starters. I think redrawing the regions and maybe fixing the Northeast are your two solutions here.
Or go with the instead of a 200-mile circle, go with like the 500-mile circle that they use on travel for the championship tournament.
Yeah, I think your problem is in the Northeast. That brings a very unfair advantage. I think because 500 miles in the Northeast, you hit a ton of schools, where 500 miles in the Northwest, you really didn't do much.
Well, I think that's part of the thing with the not going all the way to every game counts, because the country's so diverse that what works in one part of the country
doesn't work elsewhere.
Doesn't work in another part of the country. So I think it's really hard to legislate a system that kind of pays everybody back and the all game count. And I don't disagree with your point about the all games counts and maybe tipping the financial scales or whatever else. But
also when you go to my only other point, I got to it real quick is, before we lose time, is all games count. Those teams that traveled who didn't get the automatic bid have a huge advantage because they have teams on
guess, comes down to, that we, it's kind of whether you're going, I think, the tide rises all the ships or whatever. And I think if you've got to kind of, we can't, you can't knock it down to everything. I also don't know if it's.
But it's also
fair
Division
to student
III.
athletes to. Yeah, I know, but I don't know if it's fair to student athletes to knock everything down so that a school that might not make as big a commitment to athletics, I guess, is rewarded for that. Not to put athletics not in its place, but I think it's got to be.
I was going to say, I mean, you're arguing there where Amherst puts athletics really high in its list versus, let's say, my alma mater, Goucher, where it's certainly not very high on the list.
Right, but that's an institutional choice.
I don't disagree, but
institutions.
I don't
there
disagree.
Are institutions that set themselves up to compete at a certain level.
Agreed.
And there's institutions that don't.
Agreed.
I think one of the strengths of our particular conference of the Ohio Athletic Conference is that the fact that we've had a program in almost every sport that competes at a national level. So even if you're competing for a conference championship, you're in by default basically competing at a national level to keep up with that one team or one or two programs in your league that goes that far. And I think we've become better institutions that have that. And we have diverse membership in our league just like every other league does. But I don't know if from a legislative standpoint it should be legislated to legislate that way, I guess.
Remember, too, by the way, if all games count in one sport, they got to count in all sports. This isn't just
and I'm all for that, too.
But here's the other thing I was going to say. I think it brings back Division IV's argument from a different point of view and makes it, you know what I mean? I think it brings back something that everyone thought was gone, and I think it makes it a stronger argument.
Yeah, but I don't know if that'll ever get back the legs.
I think this would make it. I think this will make it the legs.
Well,
I just think because there's going to be schools out there going, that's not the philosophy of this division.
Well, I don't.
But I'm not making the decisions.
That's true. That's true.
Thank God. Hey, we've gone well into overtime here.
Hey, we have.
Chris is. I can see Chris on the other camera.
A whole other show.
I know Chris on the other camera is practically asleep right now, so we should probably go. I appreciate the chat though. It's good to have a counterpoint.
There you go.
I don't always get that.
We're good.
Maybe I'll have you on for counterpoint every week.
Yeah, Crossfire. We can do a little
old school Crossfire. You wear the bow tie.
There you go.
You wear the bow tie, and we'll see how it works.
I'm always willing to have a healthy debate. Now we're not going to be the Republicans. There's not going to be a debate like every other day, right?
Well, only if we can find as many media people as we can to possibly ask us questions that we don't want asked. As long as one of us tells them that they can't be asking that question, I'm all for it.
Yeah. Well,
is it sponsored?
This is a usual night in Salem. This is debate that goes on in Salem, right? This is what happens at
it's a good thing
throughout Salem in the last week of December.
And it's a very good thing
in the middle of March.
And it's a good thing we don't air those.
That's correct.
Hey, Lenny, I appreciate it, my man.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks so much. Take care. Lenny Reich from Mount Union. That certainly went far longer than I anticipated. Chris, I'm putting you on camera. Sorry, buddy. Didn't expect to have that go long on you.
It's all right. You're paying me overtime tonight, Dave.
I am.
Okay,
and,
just making sure.
In rubles.
I'll take what I can get.
Or maybe the euro.
All right.
That's doing so well.
Right.
Good show in your hands?
Oh, great show. Like you said, a little point counterpoint. Maybe we should make that a segment.
Seriously.
Maybe not run 40 minutes over, but have a little debate each week at some point, maybe on Sundays.
Well played.
It's a good idea.
Well played. I got to find somebody to do it with, though, and make sure that we have points and counterpoints.
Right. Well, maybe the stuff that you rant about, you could have
there you go.
an opposing view, something like that. That'd be good.
Not bad. We'll work on that maybe for the future. Not a bad idea.
Hey,
good job with School of the Week, despite the last question.
Thanks. That was fun. Coach did a nice job with those questions.
Yeah, he did do very good. Again, Monday, you'll be here bright and bushy-tailed at 8 o'clock.
I'll be here, ready to go. Another good show coming up.
Very good. Hey, Chris, I appreciate it, buddy. Good work.
Thanks, Dave.
I will. I'll let you maybe rest here shortly.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody else, for joining us here on Hoopsville. Appreciate you taking the time. 10:42 on the East Coast. We went 42 minutes over. I apologize for anybody who was going, oh, come on. If you listen to the archive, I hope you enjoyed it. I want to thank all of our guests, Rod Wood, Dan Rozier, I knew I was going to screw that up. I forgot. Hold on. Chuck Wickelman.
Pat Miller.
Pat Miller, thank you very much.
Robin Hamilton.
And, of course, Robin Hamilton. Very interesting points of view from Robin Hamilton. See, that's why we got Chris back there, by the way. Very interesting points of view from her. We're going to sign off. We're back on Monday night this week. Monday night, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. In the meantime, the archive will be available in rather few minutes, and we'll post that as well. You're listening to Hoops. You have been listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com on Ustream. Thanks very much for listening, everybody. We'll catch you on Monday.